Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clarke, Dr. Chang, Ms. Grange, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Dr. Tufton, Mrs. Williams, Mr. Vaz, Mrs. Malawu Fort, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Main, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Terry Long, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Witter, Ms. Smith, Mr. Davis, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Main, Mr. Chin, Mr. Montague, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright, Mr. Siblist,
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I want to share with you in welcoming members to the sitting for the conclusion of the State of Constituency debates, which have been going very well and have offered a great opportunity for account of their stewardship, but more importantly, for their constituents to be able to relate to the level of representation that they are giving to them in this honorable House. Madam Speaker, it is sure that so far the debate has gone with great vigor and energy on both sides of the House. And it is one of the things that we really want to continue as members on all sides, not just the executive, because it's always a case where the executive gets the opportunity to speak in the House and to express how the policies of government has been. But it is so critical for the members to be able to account to their constituents in this chamber as to their stewardship. So I beg to move for the suspension of the standing orders to allow for the continuation of the State of the Constituency debate as the first item for today. And in that instance, Madam Speaker, the Speaker intended to be the member for St. James Central, and he will be followed by the member for St. Mary Southeast, who will close the debate. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I was just inquiring, will you be speaking in the debate? You know that this is an opportunity for all members to speak. But I must correct the House Leader. These debates were intended to influence the budget first and foremost. First and foremost. First and foremost. And secondly, yes, you know, for us to show up to our people. But, Madam Speaker, I'm disappointed that throughout these debates, the Ministry of Finance was not present. And that was the main reason why we fought to have this debate and to include the Speaker to enable the budget to be so guided by what we are representing to the government.
Madam Speaker, in real terms, the Leader of Opposition Business in the House is not incorrect. The sequence of his presentation needs to be tweaked a little bit, because the first and foremost responsibility in this House for everyone is to represent the people of the constituency who sent them here. And that's what RUPA, that's the essence of RUPA. So in addition to that, of course, we now want to influence the budget outcomes in favor of the presentation and the content of the presentations from the members. So just for record to be clear, and also to ensure that he recognizes that we're not boasting in vain. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Very able and exuberant Deputy Speaker. Very youthful as well. The House Leader has indicated that we will have two presentations today, the first of which is from the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, none other than Member Heroy Clarke, the Member of Parliament for St. James Central. You may take to your feet and request permission.
Madam Speaker, I seek your permission to speak from a seat, that which is not mine.
Permission granted. You have been given permission to speak from a seat other than your own.
Madam Speaker, the journey to prosperity.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, it is a pleasure to rise in this honorable House to contribute to the 2023 State of Constituency debate. God has been good to me. He has given me 53 years on this earth.
Really?
Madam Speaker, sometime coffee, sometime tea. But all in all, I am blessed.
Yes, yes.
Blessed enough to have a leader who believes in young people, one who understands the thinking of the less fortunate, the downtrodden, and the forgotten. This leader speaks of we and us, not me and I.
Yes, absolutely.
Together, hand in hand, we are moving along the journey as one. And Jamaica wholeness be blessed. Madam Speaker, any institution that is without a supportive team will fail.
Oh, yes.
I will therefore use this opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of my family, especially my children, who continue to give me their support and to give up their father to the service of this nation. I am very grateful to my immediate management committee, who continue to work tirelessly. To the youth arm within my geo-block, I say thank you. To the ones who continue to contribute financially and in any other way to the constituency, a huge and heartfelt thank you. Social media personnel who continue to keep the fire blazing, those abroad and at home. A very special thank you to my church leaders, led by some of the most astute men of God. I salute you.
Yes.
Please continue to pray as the journey continues. To my supportive voters and every single worker, I salute you. St. James Central would not have been the same without you. Madam Speaker, it was a Herculean moment in 2010. 3 wise men who worked in the East but represented the West found St. James Central on one of their journey. Dr. Horace Chang, Minister Edmund Bartlett, Minister Clive Mullins. I am respectfully thanking you 3 for all the work you did and give up a division, even in giving up a division to the birth of a constituency, St. James Central. Madam Speaker, I believe heavily in education, and therefore I invest heavily in this vehicle every year. For the budgeted year 2023-2024, I invested a whopping $7 million through my CDF and sponsorship from my well-wishers. For our back-to-school treat, over 3,000 children benefited from my constituency, even as far as Westmoreland and Hanover. They received bags, pack, books, and other school supplies. For students attending high school, they benefited by receiving a minimum of 3 textbooks per person. Over 182 students benefited. Our tertiary students received grants. To date, 203 students benefited from this initiative. We continue to pay for CSEC and CXC subjects for students who continues to reach out for our assistance. With the help from Chase, Madam Speaker, we are getting a much-needed infant department to the farm primary school in Green Pond. This primary school in Salt Spring has been receiving recently refurbishing through the JSIF. This entity, through its visionary leadership, continues to transform Salt Spring from what it used to be to a place where we soon and very soon will be able to live in peace and comfort. Madam Speaker, we still have work to do in the community. We have been conducting stakeholders meetings. We have also been receiving help through the churches, the police, the political representatives, agencies, and citizens alike, as we all believe in Salt Spring. Yes. Madam Speaker, we understand that thinking that I have sought the help of Chase and have fitted each of my government-operated schools with musical instruments so as to give the student the chance of performing arts. Whilst we are on that note, it is this MP that has donated 53 smart boards to the school within the area. Madam Speaker, the cost to this venture is a whopping sum of $14 million. Madam Speaker, this was not funded by government coffers, but from the support in the diaspora and family here and abroad. We are not done yet, Madam Speaker. We are feverishly gathering more to import for the new school year. At this time, I want to serve notice to the Ministers of Education and Youth, Minister Favour Williams, and the Minister of Finance, Dr. Nigel Clarke, that I will be seeking their support to offset the custom duty when these smart boards arrive. Madam Speaker, my colleague, well-wishers, and may I dare say detractors, they don't just call me King of Road because they want to give me a name. Madam Speaker, anyone who knows the area well will agree willingly or reluctantly that since being the victor in 2016, St. James Central have seen massive infrastructural transformation in the road network. Madam Speaker, roads have been made into carpet that have never seen Baba Green in 60 years. We have improved the following roadway: Road 41 in Rose Heights, Farm Heights, Salt Spring Road, Vernon's Drive, Vernon's Road, Farm Hill, Green Pond Main Road, Valley Heights, just to name a few. Portobello. And with the help of a corporate company, we were able to do a section of Portobello Heights in concrete. Madam Speaker, I will be the first to say all is not completed. There are many road networks that we intend to fix. So resident of Robert Reed Drive, Birchill left side section of Flower Hill, Church Lane in Salt Spring, Repasture in Salt Spring, roads in Cornwall Court, Golden Heights, Huggins Road, and Cornwall Gardens, we will be coming to you soon. Madam Speaker, we are far advanced in the discussion with the Tory Eastern Foundation to create a mini park at lands adjacent to Jared Park. We have already received the no objection letter from the St. James Municipal Corporation. When this is completed, the elders and the youth alike will have at their disposal a multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art multi-purpose facility, which includes an indoor gymnasium, a multi-purpose court, a jogging trail, and a mini football field. Just to highlight, Madam Speaker, Tory Easton is a basketball star that plays for the Houston Rockets, is of Jamaican parentage. Minister Mackenzie toured the space and has given his blessing. Honorable Prime Minister, you had given us funding to assist with urban renewal. We have then written to you as to the usage of the fund. We fervently await your response. Let me be the one to say to our Prime Minister, thank you for a promise kept. The Montego Bay Bypass Perimeter Road is moving full speed. A section of my constituency is below sea level. That is the town of Montego Bay. And so whenever it rains, we have flooding. Mr. Prime Minister, you gave instruction for a feasibility study to be done on the drain system in St. James Central area of the St. James with the view to go to construction. We in St. James Central believe in you as Job did in God. We know you will come through. And as my good colleague, Minister Floyd, would say, forward ever, backward never. Madam Speaker, while we are doing mega projects simultaneously, we continue to support our small business owners. Our small business owners have also been assisted through grants from my CDF and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. We, Madam Speaker, bear the task of making space for many of the national edifices within the West. Through the Ministry of Tourism, we have received funding over the years under the Spruce Up Jamaica program. Yes. I have been able to construct some very lovely directional signs for the constituency. Also, we are to construct 4 vending stalls and create a lay-by for the existing fruit vendors on the Felicity Roadway. There is a high number of tourists and locals who pass through that area and patronize the vendors daily. It is the aim to have the area more aesthetically pleasing and safer for all to utilize. The CRH is on the last leg to completion. The Children and Adolescent Hospital is right there too. Montego Bay Fire Station is one of the largest in the hemisphere. It is now open, up and running. The newly constructed Mount Salem Police Station is now up, protecting and serving. The rehabilitation of the Barney Street Police Station is far advanced in planning. Madam Speaker, water continues to be a sore point for the constituency. Minister Matthew Samuda visited with us and toured all the existing facilities within the constituency that provides water. He saw the situation and have reaffirmed the need to help us, Madam Speaker, and help is on its way. Minister, we continue to wait as water is life. Madam Speaker, while we are smiling, our hearts are heavy. Heavy, Madam Speaker, with the number of criminals that continue to perpetrate by just a few. This must stop. We must no longer accept this kind of behavior. Madam Speaker, the constituency of St. James Central says time come. Time come not to what the king's opposition is having a nightmare of. But time come for this senseless killing to stop. Madam Speaker, may I dare say that your ascendance to the chair as a Speaker of this honorable House has come at a time when fresh and astute thinking is welcome to the sitting of the lower house. I pray that the Almighty will continue to bless you with all that which he has blessed Ruth and Naomi, with an outspoken tongue, a humble heart, yet a fearless attitude to our Prime Minister. As God has blessed young Saul, young Samuel, David and Solomon, I pray he continue to anoint you, my Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, my leader Banya, them parents Banya, and as such him now left ya. He is here to stay. He is here to stay. He is here to stay. And all 48 of us pledge to stay here with him. With that said, Madam Speaker, the third term, reload. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, this is truly an example of efficiency, precision, and absolute eloquence. And it's a St. James teacher. Congratulations to the member for St. James Central. Madam Speaker, may I invite you now to have the member from St. Mary Southeast to close the debate.
Next to his feet to conclude the state of the constituency debate is none other than Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, the Member of Parliament for St. Mary Eastern. St. Mary Southeastern. State Minister Dunn is currently in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Welcome to your feet, and I know you're always concerned about ensuring you abide by the standing orders. You have 30 minutes, and if the House Leader and yourself so need it, an extra 5 minutes to conclude your presentation today.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's a great honor and privilege to stand here on behalf of all my parliamentary colleagues to close the 2023 constituency debate. Madam Speaker, the debate started on October the 3rd, and a total of 26 members participated. The presentations were concise and delivered with great enthusiasm. But, Madam Speaker, as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And especially after the spirited debate from MP Clarke, the Member of Parliament from St. James Central. Madam Speaker, as we draw the curtain on the 2023 debate, it is with heartfelt appreciation and pride that I extend my gratitude to every Member of Parliament who has tirelessly worked towards the betterment of their constituency. The commitment and dedication displayed by our honourable members reflect a shared vision for prosperity, a vision championed by our esteemed Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness. My fellow colleagues, Madam Speaker, I stand before you to express sincere thanks on behalf of our constituents and every Jamaican who acknowledge the remarkable efforts and achievements presented during this debate. The shared commitment in addressing crucial issues such as road infrastructure, water supply, electricity, healthcare, education, crime, and agriculture reaffirms our collective responsibility to the well-being of our people. The year 2023 has been a remarkable year for this wonderful nation and saw the birth and completion of several infrastructural projects. These vast developments will remain a hallmark in the history of Jamaica. Even in the face of adversity, Jamaica, Madam Speaker, emerged as a shining example of resilience and determination. As the world grappled with the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, Jamaica, Madam Speaker, stood tall, embodying the spirit of resilience. The nation's unswerving commitment to rebuilding not only showcases strength, but also serve as an inspiration for all of us. Through our collective efforts and united spirit, Jamaica not only weathered the storm, but thrived in the process, demonstrating that even in the most challenging times, a nation can come together to build stronger. Madam Speaker, as members of Parliament, we diligently strive to enhance the state of road infrastructure throughout our constituencies. While discussing the state of our road often attracts criticism, it is imperative to recognize the significant progress that has been achieved across every constituency in Jamaica. The comprehensive and constructive debates within this esteemed Parliament affirms that substantial efforts are indeed underway. Madam Speaker, evidently across various constituencies were the unveiling of several major transformative infrastructural projects, notably the significant efforts towards the soon-to-be-completed South Coast Highway Improvement Project, which will open the entire East Coast. No longer will St. Thomas be considered the forgotten parish. Likewise, Madam Speaker, the May Penn to Williamsfield leg of the South Coast Highway opened on the 14th of September. These developments connect towns, new homes, opportunities, and lead to greater resilience of our infrastructure. These ventures not only signal enhanced connectivity, but also stands as a tangible symbol to the dedication to our brighter Jamaica and a brighter future for years to come. As one member of Parliament said, forward ever, backward never. In St. James Southern, Member of Parliament Omar Davis has brought attention to specific routes earmarked for essential road rehabilitation. Notably, these are the routes from Mucko to Garland and Cambridge to Duckett Road, poised to undergo transformative upgrades. Madam Speaker, the Member of Parliament, guided by their vision, have adopted a multifaceted approach, employing patching for smaller projects and advocating full resurfacing of larger ones. In North Central Clarendon, MP Robert Nestor Morgan has reported specific achievements, including the successful rehabilitation of the Crawl River Main Road. Moreover, he has fulfilled the promise to rehabilitate Hennis Hill for Sutton's constituents and initiated patching on the Woods Community Road. During these debates, Madam Speaker, the People's Representative demonstrated a proactive stance by patching several roads through various constituencies. Main roads have been asphalted and various roadways have undergone comprehensive rehabilitation. Madam Speaker, our commitment to development transcends the realm of roads, extending to comprehensive reorganization of major squares and town centres. Notably, Member of Parliament for West Rural St. Andrew, Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, proudly announced the imminent completion of the Florence Hill Community Park. This holistic endeavor is strategically designed to enhance connectivity and to elevate the aesthetic appeal of the community. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, the dedicated effort of members from Westmoreland Western, Daniel Lawrence, were highlighted as he outlined the progress in constructing the Negril Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Market. The first phase of this transformative project involves the development of the temporary facility, facilitating and seamlessly relocation of 25 vendors from the construction site. Madam Speaker, I am delighted to announce that a wave of projects sweeping across Jamaica with the construction of several vital institutions, including hospitals, health centers, police stations, and fire stations. These significant infrastructural developments underscore our commitment to enhancing essential services and ensuring the well-being of our communities. The ongoing construction projects are a testament to this government's dedication in providing modern and efficient facilities that will positively impact the lives of Jamaicans. Justice centers and schools. To name a few, Madam Speaker, the Broadleaf Community Health Center has been renovated and expanded to serve 5,000 Manchester Central constituents, and a construction of a new state-of-the-art female ward at the Manchester Infirmary. Madam Speaker, the collaborative efforts, united in various facets of development, have yielded tangible agriculture benefit and sustainability, extending crucial assistance across our entire country. I fervently endorse the significant strides taken by this government to enhance the agricultural sector. Notably, Madam Speaker, the impact of these endeavors is vividly demonstrated by MP Cuthbert-Flynn constituency and others, where strategic initiatives such as the provision of baby chicks and feeds have been undertaken. But these measures extend, Madam Speaker, beyond the agricultural realm, seamlessly integrating with educational programs like the school feeding program. Such interventions not only bolster school breakfast programs, but also exemplify a comprehensive and holistic approach to ensuring the well-being of our education institutions. Madam Speaker, when it comes to education, it is crucial to applaud the efforts of these members of Parliament, especially in the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, where they have worked diligently, Madam Speaker, and creatively to bridge the learning gap that has emerged. The commitments shine through in various ways, from grants supporting tertiary students to providing book vouchers for secondary schools and offering assistance with school fees. Thanks to these initiatives, our children will indeed have a bright future. Madam Speaker, the members showcase the direct impact of utilizing the Constituency Development Fund, investing millions of dollars to assist our students. This remains a commendable and well-spent allocation of resources. Madam Speaker, there has been remarkable advancement in our educational infrastructure, including completion of 2 infant department buildings and the initiation of a 3rd at Roses Valley Primary School in Northeast St. Elizabeth. Additionally, a new block has been introduced at the Bridgeport High School and various facilities under construction across the island. We, Madam Speaker, express our gratitude to the Minister of Education, the Honorable Favour Williams, whose contribution played a pivotal role in realizing these projects. Madam Speaker, equally noteworthy is the collaborative efforts with the private sector and various bodies that have generously provided financial assistance. For example, the partnership between Digital Foundation and the Ministry of Education marks a significant milestone culminating in the completion of a special education center in Santa Cruz. These collaborative endeavors showcase the positive impact that can be achieved when public and private entities join forces for the betterment of education. Madam Speaker, in observance of Disabilities Week, I commend the efforts of the Members of Parliament and the Member of Parliament, in particular from St. Andrew Eastern, in retrofitting her bathroom in her constituency to ensure wheelchair accessibility. The nation collectively endeavors to strengthen inclusivity and encourage other members of Parliament from such initiative and work towards fostering greater accessibility and accommodation for persons with disability. Outside the scope of education, various constituencies, Madam Speaker, have made strides in extending grants to support business and business owners. An exemplary instance is found in the effort of MP Daniel Lawrence, who represents the constituency of Westmoreland Eastern. In acknowledging the economic growth within his jurisdiction, MP Lawrence reported the distribution of approximately 300 entrepreneurial grants offering crucial support to both business operators and farmers. Madam Speaker, in the face of increasingly challenging drought conditions, access to water for our constituencies have become a pressing concern. However, we have witnessed the commendable effort of Minister Matthew Samuda, who has been instrumental in initiating water projects across the entire island. Noteworthy, amongst these initiatives is the completion of the Maybole water system and installation of a solar pumping system in Northwest St. Elizabeth, as reported by Member of Parliament William J. Charles Hutchinson. Similarly, Madam Speaker, the Member of Parliament from Westmoreland Eastern, Daniel Lawrence, shared updates on the rehabilitation work at the Ashton Community Catchment with a significant investment of $10 million that included the installation of new pipelines. He expressed gratitude, like most of us, Madam Speaker, to Minister Desmond McKenzie and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development for their substantial contribution, especially in providing water through trucking to communities across Jamaica affected by the drought. But, Madam Speaker, it brings me great pleasure to report that it has been a positive year for residents of West Rural St. Andrew. Their dedicated Member of Parliament, Judith Cuthbert-Flynn, announced a substantial upgrade of a water tank, expanding its capacity from 8,000 to an impressive 100,000 gallons. a transformative step towards addressing water accessibility challenges in her constituency. But, Madam Speaker, shifting focus to housing, it is imperative to recognize the unwavering efforts of our dedicated Prime Minister in providing housing solutions for those in need. Construction is set to commence in multiple constituencies across the island, and numerous residents have already become homeowners due to these initiatives and the quest to provide housing solutions, and upgrading of settlements to provide decent solutions to our people. We can use MP Crawford's presentation, which testified, Madam Speaker, to the presentation of 112 housing solutions, including 80 service lots and 32 bedroom units in Perth Estate, and the PM's gift of 6 housing units to constituents through the Hope Social Housing Project in her constituency, and several, Madam Speaker, across Jamaica, including my Southeast St. Mary, constituents have benefited from this transformational program. In particular, Madam Speaker, the Member of Parliament from North Central Clarendon, Robert Nestor Morgan, has reported significant strides in addressing housing needs, with over 30,000 square feet of land in Dunn, Savoy earmarked for social housing, completed projects, and additional initiative benefiting constituents. It is evident, Madam Speaker, that this government is committed to ensuring housing accessibility in North Central Clarendon and throughout Jamaica. Madam Speaker, this government stands against the prevalence of crime in Jamaica and empathizes with Jamaicans suffering from this wrath. But thankfully, Madam Speaker, this Andrew Owens-led administration, and under the capable leadership and guidance of our dedicated Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, Dr. Owis Chang, has been working on improving national security for all. Madam Speaker, I draw attention to the impactful presentation delivered by the Honourable Homer Davis, Member of Parliament for St. James Southern, underscoring his unwavering commitment to addressing social issues within the constituency. Member Davis commenced his address, Madam Speaker, by acknowledging the tragic murder of 2 children in Salt Spring, Montego Bay, expressing his profound concern for the safety of the community in the face of criminal activities. He highlighted decisive measures taken by the JDF and the JCF, leading to a declaration of state of emergency in St. James. Member Davis emphasized the tangible results of this intervention, noting a significant reduction of 200 cases in the murder rate. He passionately advocated for sustained efforts in crime elimination, characterizing it as a necessary step to drain the swamp and enhance the overall safety of Jamaica. At different junctures throughout the year, Madam Speaker, numerous crime-fighting strategies have been deployed, resulting in the reduction of all major crimes across Jamaica. Madam Speaker, interesting days are ahead. The dedication of each Member of Parliament is evident as they articulate their commitment to ongoing and, in some instances, enhanced efforts in their respective constituencies. Madam Speaker, the $40 million road project for each Member of Parliament has made a significant impact for all those that have been implemented so far. However, Madam Speaker, the significant $40 billion Spark program is a tremendous effort in a concerted way to address major road issues across Jamaica. This program is poised not only to develop the physical infrastructure of these spaces, but also to elevate the overall quality of life of our constituents, making a significant step towards providing positive national development. But, Madam Speaker, there were also a number of notable recommendations. Member Anthony Hilton stated that the Ministry of Education responded positively to his proposal for a curriculum shift at school. This proposed shift includes the introduction of a course in global supply chain management and logistics. Meanwhile, Member Robert Chin presented on the Essex Valley project, which activities span both Manchester Southern and St. Elizabeth Southeastern constituencies. The project is now in the construction phase. It is designed, Madam Speaker, to focus on ensuring access to irrigation in water in farming communities while adapting to the challenges of climate change. It includes upgrading drainage system, installing solar generation, improving farm roads, and post-harvest handling facilities. Madam Speaker, Member Julian Robertson presented concerns and recommendations during his presentation. The member recommended conducting a study to assess the feasibility of installing a light rail system in Kingston metropolitan region. The aim is to alleviate traffic congestion and enhance public transportation. Member Robert Montague, Member of Parliament for St. Mary Western, in his presentation, advocated for the National Works Agency to empower parish offices to procure works below $10 million, emphasizing the need for local projects in rural Jamaica to move forward, citing delays in approving many small projects. So, Madam Speaker, the Member of Parliament from Manchester Central, Rhoda Crawford, announced the Greater Mandeville Water Improvement Project, which will replace pipelines, install new pumps, new generators, and drill new wells, ensuring the availability of water for hundreds of new customers and reliable supply for thousands of existing customers. Madam Speaker, the Mandeville Traffic Management System is now 95% complete and will resolve a long-standing traffic congestion in that town. And last, the Manchester Central introduced, Madam Speaker, its first victim service child-friendly space, providing a safe, calm, and comfortable space for children who are victims of crime to engage with law enforcement officers and social service providers to receive psychosocial support. Madam Speaker, in closing, unfortunately, time does not permit me to individually acknowledge every dedicated member in their invaluable contribution to this enlightening debate. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each member for their unwavering commitment to the progress and prosperity of our great nation. So, Madam Speaker, I see no fitter word than those sung by the songwriter Josie Whale, who is from Southeast St. Mary. Sweet, sweet Jamaica, when I left ya. Ackee and saltfish. Because, Madam Speaker, it is evident that with the work being done in the various constituencies, Jamaica is on a visible path to prosperity. As we close this parliamentary session, let us not just celebrate the accomplishment of each member, but to recommit ourselves to the vision of a prosperous Jamaica. May the strides made in this debate serve as a testament to our unyielding commitment towards building Jamaica stronger and make Jamaica a place of choice to live, work, raise family, and do business. Madam Speaker, may God continue to bless our island home, Jamaica. Jamaica, land we love. Thank you.
All right, members. Members. Noted minister, state minister from St. Mary, Southeastern, you did excellent in respect of sticking to the time. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, we understand the exuberance that now pervades the air after such an outstanding closure of this outstanding debate sequence that began earlier this year. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that you revert to the standing orders.
Members.
Hold on. Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think
House Leader.
the exuberance of the moment have overtaken many
House
members
Leader,
of this House on both sides, but the calm has returned.
One moment, House Leader.
Madam Speaker,
one moment, House
I beg
Leader.
to move. Yes. I'm moving for the, yes. Madam Speaker, I invite the member for St. Mary Southeast to now move the appropriate motion. Madam Speaker, can you bring the member?
Member Montague, excuse me. Not in this house. Not appropriate. All right, House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we can understand too that this is the penultimate sitting for this session, but members should also bear in mind that the basic integrity of the House needs to be preserved and maintained. And so it is to enable members to participate in relative silence so that they can be heard. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the member from St. Mary Southeast now move for the adoption of the resolution with regards to the constituency debate.
Member from St. Mary Southeastern.
Madam Speaker, I so move that the motion be accepted.
Question is that the motion be accepted. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move for the reversion of the standing orders as stated by the order paper.
Those in favor?
All right.
Those against? The ayes have it. Statement by ministers.
Madam Speaker, it is intended today to have three statements. First, by the Deputy Leader of Government Business and member for St. Catherine Central, and also the Minister of Culture, Entertainment and Sports. And the second by the member from St. Elizabeth Southwestern and Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries. And the third by the member from Clarendon Southeast and Minister of Labour and Social Security. In that order, may it please you, Madam Speaker.
First, to her feet, Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports, the member from St. Catherine Central.
Madam Speaker, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, IDIVWAL, was November the 25th. Which signaled the start of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence observed annually up to December 10. The international theme, Investing to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls, as well as Jamaica's theme, From Response to Preparedness, Eliminating Gender-Based Violence in Jamaica, resonate deeply with the challenges faced by women and girls globally. The annual observance of IDIVWAL serves to remind us of the prevalent issue of violence against women and girls. It requires our collective attention, advocacy, activism, and action. The campaign against gender-based violence calls on citizens to show how much they care about ending violence against women and girls. It also requires that governments and other stakeholders worldwide make huge investments in gender-based violence prevention. The local theme, From Response to Preparedness, Eliminating Gender-Based Violence in Jamaica, aims to highlight Jamaica's commitment and responsiveness in addressing gender-based violence. We are currently, Madam Speaker, conducting assessments as guided by the National Strategic Action Plan to Eliminate Gender-Based Violence in Jamaica, that is NSAP GBV 2017 to 2027. This includes a robust review of the gender-based violence legislative framework, including the enactment of the Sexual Harassment Protection and Prevention Act, the establishment of the National Shelter Program, the signing of MOUs with key ministries, the development of the gender-based violence referral pathway, extensive gender-based violence training, and other key programs to strengthen Jamaica's collective response towards eliminating gender-based violence. The Women's Health Survey, commissioned by UN Women in partnership with the Inter-American Development Bank, reveals that approximately 1 in 4 Jamaican women has experienced intimate partner violence during her lifetime. Domestic violence remains a major concern, often underreported owing to fear, to stigma, lack of support, or fear of reprisals. Sexual violence is alarmingly prevalent, affecting 1 in 3 women and includes rape, incest, sexual harassment, as well as other forms of violence, such as sexual abuse, exploitation, and discrimination. In response to the challenges, my ministry, through the Bureau of Gender Affairs, has embarked on a series of decisive and gender-responsive actions to tackle gender-based violence. The National Strategic Action Plan to eliminate gender-based violence in Jamaica outlines a comprehensive roadmap for seamless and effective coordination. It is being implemented through the following strategic priority areas: prevention, protection, investigation, prosecution, and enforcement of court orders and victims' rights to compensation, reparation, redress, as well as protocols for coordination of the NSAP and data management systems. Our commitment is further evidenced through ongoing policy development and legislative reforms to provide a framework for protecting women's rights and ensuring legal recourse for survivors. So, Madam Speaker, as we continue this journey, we acknowledge the importance of multi-sectoral approach in keeping with the guiding principles of the National Policy for Gender Equality 2021. Speaking to our accomplishments, the Sexual Harassment, Protection and Prevention Act 2021 came into effect on July 2023. It contains provisions for dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace, in schools, correctional institutions, places of safety, nursing homes, medical and psychiatric facilities, among other spaces, as well as instances of sexual harassment that may arise in landlord and tenant relationships. The Sexual Harassment Investigation Unit was also established on April 1, 2022, and is responsible for handling matters regarding sexual harassment in the workplace. The unit supports the work of the Bureau of Gender Affairs and the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport in general. The Sexual Harassment Investigation Unit consists of one senior sexual harassment investigative officer and 3 sexual harassment investigative officers. Their main duties and responsibilities are interviewing complainants, witnesses, and employees regarding cases of alleged sexual harassment, providing technical logistical support to the Sexual Harassment Tribunal, coordinating training for tribunal and authorized members, conducting sexual harassment sensitization sessions in various organizations, institutions, ministries, departments, and agencies, and non-government organizations. Extensive sensitization sessions with an overall reach, Madam Speaker, of 28,430 participants, including public, private sector, community groups, educational and faith-based institutions. And, Madam Speaker, 11,695 males and 16,735 females, after a total of 431 sessions spanning the period September 2019 to November 27, 2023. The Bureau of Gender Affairs is responsive to the needs of survivors and victims of gender-based violence and the implementation of the NSAP GBV. A gender-based violence helpline unit, Madam Speaker, was launched to support victims, survivors, and witnesses of gender-based violence on March 1, 2022, and officially established on September 25, 2023. The unit ensures that all women and girls, men and boys, affected or exposed to gender-based violence can access the professional psychosocial support and necessary treatment needed to effectively address their needs, allowing them to leave their abusive situation. The unit undertakes a multi-sectoral approach to provide support services to survivors by creating a seamless link to service providers under each ministry, department, and agency through the GBV referral pathway, which means that a report comes and there is a network that is triggered. So it moves from the complaint to the JCF and to other entities until that person is taken to a safe place. A seamless approach. The unit offers support services to the victims and survivors of GBV at the community and national level, inclusive of psychosocial support, gender-based violence-related information, counseling, assessing the survivor's needs, and allowing space for safety planning. Through the Gender-Based Violence Helpline Unit, persons affected by gender-based violence can obtain access to essential services 24/7, all night and during public holidays, through our referral pathways such as health, policing, justice, and social services to assist with specific survivor needs. The Gender-Based Violence Helpline Unit is a gateway to the national shelter. Madam Speaker, to date, the unit has dealt with 7,466 cases. 7,466 cases, with 5,227 being females. And we're not leaving the men out. So 2,239 men. That is 70% female, 30% male. And we have been able to address all their concerns. The unit has also made 6 important partnerships through the Parish Coordination Platform with the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Victim Services Division, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, the Women's Crisis Center, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, as well as the Child Protection and Family Services Agency to provide a coordinated response to address gender-based violence. Madam Speaker, the international theme aligns with our ongoing efforts to provide gender-responsive financing to implement the National Strategic Action Plan, as well as other programs and initiatives aimed at reducing violence against our women and our girls. The Spotlight Initiative has been pivotal to financing prevention strategies. And through the Spotlight Initiative, the UNFPA has provided the Bureau of Gender Affairs with technical and financial support for the establishment and operation of 3 shelters, coordination and response platform for gender-based violence survivors in Jamaica. And I just want to quickly say, the support includes the employment of 3 gender-based violence helpline specialists and 1 supervisor within the Bureau of Gender Affairs to provide psychosocial support and counseling. Training to equip the specialists with psychological.
House Leader.
Speaker, the minister's time having been expired, I beg to move that it be extended by 5 minutes to allow her to complete the presentation. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, House Leader. The question is that the Minister be allowed 5 more minutes to complete her presentation. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, they have also provided us with an ICT consultant to assist with ICT infrastructure of the shelters and the GBV helplines at the Bureau. They have also assisted us in getting a toll-free line established at the Bureau of Gender Affairs. So if you have a problem, you don't have to have data. You can call the toll-free line and you reach someone 24/7. And it's not just for the women, but also for the men. Financial support to re-engage a built environment specialist to coordinate activities for the renovation and retrofitting of Shelter 3. Improved ICT infrastructure for the shelters, including equipment and electronic devices to enhance the operation of Shelters 1 and 2. And they have provided us with AC units for server rooms for fire security system and generators at Shelters 1 and 2. So, Madam Speaker, I've handed out this which details the numbers that can be called, and we have numbers for female and numbers for men. The Bureau signaled the beginning of IDEVOR and the 16 days of activism on Saturday, November 25th, with a community march and walkthrough in Treasure Beach, St. Elizabeth, sharing anti-violent messages with brochures, etc. The Bureau joined in worship on November 26th at the Bethel service, Bethel Baptist Church. And we have carried out a number of activities, Madam Speaker. So we will observe World AIDS Day. We did observe World AIDS Day on December 1, International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3, and will observe Human Rights Day on December 10. So IDEVOR, Madam Speaker, represents a commitment to create a society where every woman and girl can live a life free from fear and violence. Our commitment is reflected through our actions to protect and empower women and girls. Through the implementation of the National Strategic Action Plan, Jamaica reaffirms its dedication to combat gender-based violence, promoting equality, and ensuring the well-being of all women and girls. I ask my colleague, Madam Speaker, through you, to ensure that we carry the message throughout our constituencies that there is no excuse for abuse. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Responding to the statement will be the member from St. Catherine Eastern. Do you need the podium?
Madam Speaker, as I stand to support and to participate in the 16 days of activism, and also to keep supporting and celebrating with women and girls until December the 10th, I want to lend my voice in supporting the presentation made by the minister and also the teams investing to prevent violence against women and girls, which is international, from response to preparedness, eliminating gender-based violence in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, I know, based on the minister's presentation and her intentions, that a lot has been done, but there is much more for us to capture. We need to find a way to get women and girls, especially men too, to start speaking out. We have to provide an comfortable space for them to be able to speak out. Madam Speaker, there is so much happening, especially in the rural areas, with our women and girls. And I personally believe that in terms of our database, I am not too certain if we have captured everyone. It is hard to capture, but there's a number of women and girls out there that are suffering. And Madam Speaker, I just want to say to the Parliament, I never realized how impactful and how much kind of trauma that really happened when a woman is really being abused and molested. Until the other day when I spoke to one of my constituents who said to me, I have achieved so much, but I cannot find any peace within myself because I was molested by my big brother. Madam Speaker, it is very difficult, and sometimes we take it for granted, even as women, because it has never happened to us. But there's a lot of crying inside, especially with our girls and women in certain homes. I strongly believe more emphasis must be placed on empowering our women and girls so that they can become independent and not being dependent on persons who are their abusers. Madam Speaker, we have decided in this Parliament to have a non-partisan women's caucus. And I implore that we really and truly start doing more, especially in lending our voices towards protecting women and girls. I believe, Madam Speaker, that if we do not make sure that we have social workers to go out into the communities, probably we need to use up our justice of the peace to do more in terms of getting people to come to them and to speak to them, because we will never have enough bodies to put out there to be able to capture what we intend to do to eliminate violence against girls and women. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we need to extend it a little further, especially for the rural areas, and especially because some of these shelters are placed in some areas that it's going to make it difficult for them to be able to keep children and themselves safe. We need to start empowering the communities. We need to use more media, get the media to pay more attention and to do more advertising, and to empower, especially, and educate our men and boys more so, that they will be able to prevent violence against women and girls. Thank you.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I just rise to lend my support as well, but just as I
question
think about what has happened in
question.
It's getting there. It's getting there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to give you a question, Madam Speaker, but this is a topic that I think affects all of us. And I'm going to respond, and I'm asking a question as well. As it relates to how...
Member.
It's a question that I'm framing.
Member. Right. So I'm going to definitely allow you to frame a question, and I'm making every effort for all of us to stick to the standing orders, including myself. So I will give you a little time to put the question together instead of making a statement.
May I finish by now, Madam Speaker?
No, but you would not have obeyed the standing orders.
Oh, boy.
Please put it together in terms of a question. The latitude is being given.
Madam Speaker, I would like to ask the Minister, what are the efforts being made to ensure that our young people are given an awareness of their self-worth from very early in their lives? My days at primary school, I don't remember ever having been exposed to the importance of having my own and and understanding my value as a young woman, and that I didn't need a man to validate me, and that a man don't need a woman to validate him either, but that some sense of worth be inculcated in our children in a collaborative effort between the Ministry of Health and Education, and a real campaign so that we grow up understanding that a man not for work to feed to mind me, and that without him I can't exist. Just the education process is what I'm asking about.
Thanks, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank my colleagues for their response, and just to respond to the question asked, we have... Madam Speaker, you want me to wait until all the questions have been...
No, what happens is if the mic was pressed for an additional question, then when I touch the mic, the next mic that would have come on would be the individual waiting in line to ask a question. If I press the mic and yours come on, it means that nobody else had pressed their mic to ask a question.
But I hadn't.
Do you want me to wait?
No, so yes, please do. Allow the opposition leader to ask a question.
And the Domestic Violence Act. I was on that committee at the time. A lot of work was put in. Numerous representations were made by stakeholders who are interested in the issues of violence against women and children in particular, and other vulnerable groups, such as persons with disabilities. That report was produced and recommended a large panoply of amendments to those statutes. Nothing seems to have been done to take those matters further in terms of actually legislating those changes. And this is years now I'm talking about. But in particular in relation to the Domestic Violence Act, which directly relates to the matter at hand today, that committee felt quite strongly that the Domestic Violence Act was insufficient as a legislative framework to address the cultural and sociological, economic, emotional issues that surround gender-based violence and domestic violence in particular, and that it needed to be looked at more deeply, not just from the point of view of criminal offenses and so on, but the whole issue around how victims of such violence can be supported and can be given redress through a system that is sensitive to their needs and the realities in which they live, including often where there's some financial dependence on the violence perpetrator. And Madam Speaker, my question is, when will we see that in-depth review of the Domestic Violence Act take place? I would hope that it would be through a process which would include the public and stakeholders who have an interest in this issue, including members of the opposition, and also the other much-needed raft of reforms that were agreed in that Joint Select Committee process, but which have seemed to be lying dormant and fallow. I'm anxious to hear the response to that.
The member from St. Andrew Southwest. I had pressed your mic for some reason and it didn't come on. You had turned it off back?
I'm not so sure.
You know exactly what happened.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Minister, thanks for the statement. I listened to every word, although I was elsewhere. I am well aware of some of the things that are being done as a member of the Gender Advisory Council, but I'm glad that the leader of opposition asked some of the things he did, because while we were celebrating, the 16 days of activism, one of the questions that I hear being asked by individuals, a number of women and activists and advocates in the space, is really around the timeline for the implementation of these laws that need to be reviewed to give greater protection to individuals who could fall prey and victims to sexual abuse. So when you're answering that question, if you could include that in it, I would be grateful.
Minister?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I welcome those questions. And it gives me great pleasure to actually indicate today that we are far advanced in treating with amendments to the Domestic Violence Act. And it will address the low-hanging fruits that came out of the Joint Select that were recommended. And it also includes fine for breach of protection order. It includes how we will treat with perpetrator use of firearm, and a number of other. There were 6 amendments that were seen as low-hanging fruits. And we will be addressing that matter next week, where I will name the members of a Joint Select Committee. Because where we have reached now is the drafters are drafting, just about finished drafting the amendments to the bill. It will go to LegCom committee. It will come to Parliament through a Joint Select Committee, and then the bill will be tabled. So, and I'm speaking about that happening next week. So we're really far advanced with that. In relation to the other areas, Minister Chuck, under whose portfolio those fall, will speak to that at another time. But the Domestic Violence Act, we're aggressively approaching it. Everything was not under our control, as you know. We're the legislators, but we're not the drafters. And I've been very impatient to see the results. So finally, next week, I'll come to Parliament with the amendments. I also want to respond to the question about education process and how we are sensitizing our young people. Through the Bureau of Gender Affairs, we are in the schools, and we have gender ambassadors in the schools. We also have a Mentor Me program in the schools where men who are role models mentor the boys in the school. We go out in, we actually have 18 organizations across the island. Community outreach for the empowerment of our women. And those organizations form a network across the island where we are foot soldiers in the communities, treating with gender-based violence. Treating with gender-based violence in the schools, at the primary level, and at the high school level, and also at the tertiary level. So we are very, very active. As you know, you're a member of the Gender Advisory Council, and you know that we are working. Very soon, we will convene a meeting of the Bicameral Women's Caucus so that all parliamentarians, women parliamentarians, will be fully apprised of the work that's being done. But I thank you for your input.
Thank you very much, Minister. Next statement by Minister is from the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, the member for St. Elizabeth Southwestern.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister.
Madam Speaker, today I rise to provide an update on the recent floods and the damage caused to our agricultural sector by Tropical Cyclone 22. I want to thank the team from RADA who have been out in the field since the Saturday with the passage of the cyclone, Madam Speaker, assessing the damage incurred, and I'd like to share with the members of the House the findings, preliminary estimates, and of course, the response of the government. The worst hit areas, Madam Speaker, include Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and St. Thomas, and they experienced significant agricultural losses. In fact, a total of 410 hectares of crops, including vegetables, fruits, and condiments, were lost. Livestock losses were also significant, members, with 160,500 broilers, 1,460 layers, 70 pigs, 34 sheep, and 47 goats being lost in the flood rains, Madam Speaker. There has also been significant impact on infrastructure, including our farm roads, especially in the St. Thomas and St. Andrew, specifically East Rural St. Andrew areas, Madam Speaker. We've also seen loss to irrigation systems, which have had devastating impacts on our farmers in these communities. In terms of value, Madam Speaker, the damage assessment reveals that crop losses were significant, amounting to 173 million Jamaican dollars, impacting over 2,000 farmers. Livestock losses stand at roughly $26 million, affecting 550 farmers, while infrastructure damage accounts for about $64 million, which predominantly affected farm roads.
Minister, hold a moment, please. Your statement by Minister, the opposition spokesperson is not seized of a copy of the presentation. Do you have it circulating?
Apologies, Madam Speaker. It should have been circulated. I would have to check with the team if it was not provided. I will have to share a copy. I have one hard copy, Madam Speaker.
Would you be so kind as to share it with the opposition spokesperson?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Madam Speaker.
No, I do not need to reiterate the challenge we are having in the House in respect. I have actually asked about the agenda as well, which I am required to have before I take the chair at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. Very often, this agenda is being completed while the House is just about to meet. And so we definitely have some housekeeping items that need to be resolved.
So Madam Speaker,
no, I understand.
And again, my apologies,
Thanks,
Madam
Minister.
Speaker, and I will ensure that the House is provided. So, Madam Speaker, the damage assessment reveals that crop losses were significant, amounting to approximately $173 million, impacting over 2,000 farmers. Livestock losses stand at roughly $26 million, affecting 550 farmers, while infrastructure damage accounts for an estimated $64 million, predominantly in farm road damage. The total estimated loss to our agricultural sector amounts to $274,096,917, Madam Speaker. In the short term, members, as you can expect, we do anticipate that there will be disruption to our food supply, Mr. Speaker, especially on our vegetable lines. The reality is that our vegetable farmers started the year in drought and would have finished the year in extensive floods. And as such, we do expect that there will be a downturn in supply, which often gives rise to increase in prices. The aftermath of this disaster has also delayed land preparation and replanting by up to 3 weeks in the affected areas, which in fact are exacerbating the challenges faced by our farmers. Nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, members, the government always stands ready to respond and to hold the hands of our farmers through these difficult times. And as such, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that we have initiated a flood recovery response program to address the immediate needs of our farmers and to restore the affected areas. The breakdown of our response is as follows, Mr. Speaker. We will be providing $64 million to help and treat with damage that has been done to our farm road network across the parishes affected. We'll be providing $15 million to help our livestock farmers, especially those impacted who are farmers of pigs, sheep, and goats. And that is in addition, Mr. Speaker, to $50 million which we had provided earlier in November. We will also be providing $8 million to treat with small tools and equipment replacement, and we'll be providing $70 million to help our vegetable and crop farmers. In total, members of the House, the government is providing $157 million to help our farmers recover and recover quickly. As I had indicated, Mr. Speaker, this is in addition to $50 million which we had already dispersed to treat with incentivizing participation in our poultry sector, and a number of those funds will be channeled directly towards helping our farmers who had losses from poultry. Our strategic approach, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, involves prioritizing the rehabilitation of farm roads to ensure accessibility for our farmers and the transportation of produce. The substantial allocation for crop recovery aims to support our farmers in replanting and revitalizing their agricultural activities. Additionally, funds have been allocated for the replacement of small tools and equipment vital for day-to-day farming operations. The livestock sector, encompassing pigs, sheep, and goats, will receive targeted support with a dedicated fund of $15 million, again, in addition to what we've already provided to the poultry sector. Mr. Speaker, I acknowledge that there has been challenges with the speed of implementation of a number of these programs. It's something that I have specially engaged the head of RADA, Mr. Winsome Simpson, about how can we ensure that the actions follow quickly after announcements. Thankfully, Mr. Speaker, in this regard, RADA has taken a proactive approach. And as such, prior to the onset of the event, RADA had started the process for the procurement of seeds and the process in relation to livestock. Additionally, some $25 million has already been provided to the most impacted parishes of St. Thomas, St. Catherine, and St. Andrew, and we have asked those parish managers to prioritize the farmers who have suffered damage. Finally, we have received some fertilizer from our friends, the government and the people of Morocco, and that is being distributed as we speak. And we will prioritize the farmers in those areas who need this input to help them rebound. There's one final area, Mr. Speaker. You may be aware that 2 years ago we sat down with insurance companies asking them to work with the ministry to craft an appropriate insurance scheme to provide coverage for farmers from extreme weather events. Only one company answered the call at that time, and that is GK Insurance, and provided GK Weather Protect, a parametric scheme that covers extreme wind, rain, and periods of drought. The way the scheme is structured, members, is that farmers can decide the amount of coverage that they want, which is aligned to the premium that they pay. And there is no assessment of damage. Once the threshold is reached by the weather event, then the payment is automatic. So, for example, a farmer might decide that they want to pay $3,000 for a season, which would give them a maximum coverage of $50,000. And once they reach the threshold, whether it be rain or wind, depending on what peril they're covered by, then they will get an automatic payout. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that 27 farmers who were insured under the JK Weather Protect scheme and impacted by the recent rain are going to get payouts from the insurance scheme. Mr. Speaker, the farmers who are from Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth, who took advantage of the government incentive regime and signed up for the basic coverage that was being provided. The total payout amounts to $675,000, and what it means for those farmers is that without any reference to the ministry, they will have resources to rebound from the most recent weather event. This is a step in the right direction. What we need, members, are more farmers to sign up. And as such, the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining has been exploring strategies that we will embark on for the next financial year to get more farmers on board. Additionally, we continue to encourage other companies to get involved in this field so that we can provide options for our farmers to protect their agricultural enterprise. Mr. Speaker, our goal is not only to address the immediate aftermath of natural disaster, but it is also to build resilience within our agricultural communities. We acknowledge the challenges our farmers face and remain steadfast in our commitment to support them in overcoming these difficulties. As we move forward with the flood recovery response, collaboration with relevant agencies, local communities, and our valued stakeholders will be paramount. We express our gratitude, Mr. Speaker, for the ongoing support received, and assure you that the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining is dedicated to swift and effective recovery of the affected agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, we look forward to working together for the continued prosperity of our agricultural sector. Our vision for continued prosperity of the sector extends beyond our immediate recovery efforts and is a commitment to sustainable growth, innovation, and resilience. I thank you.
I now invite the shadow spokesperson on agriculture and fisheries, the member from Southwestern Clarendon, to make his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, on your maiden stint in the chair. Mr. Speaker, Minister, I want to also thank the Minister for the statement he gave to this House. But, you know, what is important is that we must accept certain realities. And the reality is that as we are here in this House, the vast majority of consumers are facing a crisis when they go to the supermarkets and the markets. It is no secret that the cost for basic vegetables have increased exponentially. We all would have encountered that in our very households. So we can appreciate that the vast majority of Jamaicans are also experiencing that increased cost for tomatoes, cabbage, carrot, lettuce, you name it. The reality, though, is that though the flood damage would have set us back, we would have received the information, Minister, from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, that the July to September quarter experienced a decrease of 9% when compared to the corresponding period of 2022. So we would have known from then that we are in a crisis and that there'll be a significant shortfall. And what the PIOJ referenced as the cause for that decrease was, one, lower yields, and two, reduced areas harvested. So it would appear as if there was not an appetite during that period for persons to start the farming process. And so what is happening is that now we're here. We are confronted with the flood damage. But the flood damage is not the only cause of the shortfall. That is the point. And these factors are known to us. Drought is known. Increased rainfall is known. I've stood here in this house and I've spoken on it numerous times. The solution is simple. I've put it to the house many times. It's not about chucking water. It's about capturing that volume of water that we see every year flowing out to the sea and utilizing that water in periods of drought. Microdams, very effective years ago. And we have not done much to advance the usage of it. Now, the reality is this, that we have already started to import tomatoes and carrots in early November. Those came in early November before the flood damage. Now the question is this: have we done a gap analysis to see what the shortfall will be for the Christmas period? Because as we are here speaking, we are importing. And so we need to do a proper analysis of where we are now, what needs to be imported, so that we don't have an excess in imports, which is going to affect the farmers who may have produce come December. Now, I've heard the announcement, but the truth is that many of us saw on the news farmers who said they have $30 million worth of losses. And what is the solution for that? It has always been here. But because of an insurance is not the solution. The solution is we have an income tax act that provides for farmers to be approved. It provides for farmers to be approved, and most of the big companies, Separate, Ray and Nephew, all of them are approved farmers. Section 36B of the Income Tax Act provides, notwithstanding the provisions of subsection 2, a person who operates an approved farming enterprise may set off any loss incurred, listen and learn, any loss incurred in connection with an prescribed agricultural activity against profits or gains arising from any other trade, listen carefully, because sometimes you don't listen, business, profession, employment. So a lawyer, a doctor who has that $30 million when him lose it, if he makes $30 million as profit for him legal practice, once he's approved, him can write off that entire loss. That is the incentive that we provided from day one for persons who are professionals to get involved in farming.
The member time has expired. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the member's time, no, you can't get 5, you get 3. Yes. I beg to move that the member's time be extended by 3 minutes to allow him to complete his presentation. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion on the table is that the member time be extended by 3 minutes for him to finish his response. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Member.
Also, Minister, we have heard the cries of the fishers, the fisher folk, the lobster fishers who said that they can't find market. And there is this issue about imports. And the Ministry of Agriculture was quite correct when they said that there are no imports. Because what they're referring to is the normal procedure of imports. But what the fisher folk are referring to, Minister, is a loophole provided by Section 54(1), of the Fisheries Act, which allows for a local person to be designated on behalf of a foreign company. Right? It is here. Right? It is 54(1). You can research it. A foreign fishing vessel license. Someone in Jamaica can, as long as there's somebody in Jamaica, and that is what is happening. The Hondurans are here. The Hondurans are here, and we know it. And they are here because of this loophole in 54(1), which allow the local fisher, somebody who is local, the big companies. We don't have to call them names, but I can call it because there's parliamentary privilege. And I can claim parliamentary privilege. But most of these big companies use 54(1) as a loophole. They carry the Hondurans here, them overfish the waters, and then the local fisher folk are left behind. What I'm referring to is that we are not educating our fisher folk and our farmers enough as to what is there already in the law to protect them. So we are saying, we are disingenuous when they say that there's no imports because 2018, because the truth is that we have companies here locally that are abusing the law and abusing the loopholes. So when you say that there's no imports, strictly speaking, there's none. But I understand, and I'm sure you understand what the fisher folk are referring to. Because they may not know the law, but they have an idea and them see the Hondurans them. So they know that they are there, they just don't understand under what circumstances they came to be here and came to be depriving them of their livelihood. You made mention of 675,027 farmers. My final question is the 675,000 per farmer or 675,000 for all the farmers who were insured? Thank you very much. Move on.
Couple of questions. Can you indicate whether the ministry has granted licenses for the imports of specific food items since the floods, and could you indicate the types of food items? And secondly, some time ago, the Integrity Commission did a report on the importation of chicken back and other related chicken parts. And there was a commitment to the government to introduce a transparent process for the issuing of the licenses. Can you update the House as to where we are at with that new process?
Member St. Andrew, Southwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, I listened very carefully to what you were outlining, and I figure that the question that I would face tomorrow when I go into the constituency is simply how the urban farmers, and in particular our chicken farmers, which is the majority of those who we have, who would have been flooded out. What is the process for them to ensure that they are part of this recovery that is being spoken about? Sometimes when we talk about farmers, we forget that there are urban farmers. And I just want to make sure that when they ask me, I can tell them. And I also want to make sure they hear it from your mouth.
Can you get to the question, please?
You obviously...
Can you get to the question, please?
Boy, no, that's okay. You come ready for me, but that's okay. Mr. Minister, I'm just simply asking. I am... It's a short question, you know. It's a short question.
Where were you? Being trouble this morning.
Thank you. Minister, I figured you didn't hear, so I wanted to just make sure that you heard the question that was being asked. for the urban farmers, in particular the chicken farmers, I want to know the process. I want to be able to tell them, and I also want them to hear it from you as well, Minister, so that they can keep both of us accountable to the process, the transparent and fair process that you will outline.
Hold on a minute, please. Member from St. Andrew. No, not Southwest this time. Western. Member Hilton, turn your mic off, please. So what ended up happening, member from St. Andrew Southwest, member from St. Andrew Western, mic was on at the same time, and you're barely hearing your question. So I'm asking you to please just repeat the end of your question to Honorable Minister. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Madam Speaker. So, Minister, the question is just very simply that for the urban farmers, and in particular the chicken farmers, who would have been badly affected by the recent floods, based on what you have outlined, I want to make sure that we are clear, you and I, and they are clear, listening to you, about the process for redress and for claim, to ensure that they understand the transparent and fair process that you have put in place.
Next would be the member from St. Andrew West, and then last question will come from the member from St. Catherine North Central.
Minister, once again, we've heard the important point that resilience, we have to build resilience in our agricultural sector.
Again.
Resilience.
May I repeat? Once again, we've heard a discussion around resilience in our agricultural sector. Could you tell the Parliament where we are in terms of introducing technologies like greenhouse and other technologies that would mitigate the impact of our predictable flooding and drought and the cycle we go through on an annual basis that affect in a very adverse way our agricultural sector year in and year out?
Madam Chair, as it relates to the appreciated announcement regarding farm roads and the assistance which will be given to farm roads. I mean, I don't want to be parochial, but I have to be. That's why I'm here. I just would like to know, Minister, who will determine which farm roads are repaired, and what will be the criteria used to determine those roads? And that I am praying that somehow the gods will bless me with one of them as well. And you know which one, because I've been at your feet.
Member, I had indicated final question. However, the latitude is being given. This is the fifth and final question. After that, Minister, could you be so kind to turn your mic on so that we can proceed afterwards?
Thank you. Thank you for the latitude, Madam Speaker. Minister, you came here to give a statement on the issue of the flooding. But I think as important to the flooding, the issue of predial larceny. Because I think that part of the challenges that farmers, hence your reduction also in production, is the issue of predial larceny. And as a rural member of Parliament, seeing the prevalence of predial larceny on a daily basis, at what point will the Minister come to the House in giving a statement and an update on some of the measures that will be put in place in stemming the whole issue of predial larceny? I think that we have been for too long tinkering at the issue of pre-deal larceny, and it, just like the whole matter of crime nationally, is a national epidemic that we're seeing now. Can the minister give us some assurance on when that will be?
Members, I am definitely going to circulate the section that deals with questions so that members are very clear on what questions are versus statements. Minister, yes. Proceed.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the members, but I appreciate especially your guidance. Nonetheless, Madam Speaker, I'll try to treat with all the matters raised, even though there are definitely some that have been raised that were outside of the scope of the statement. The pre-deal larceny member from pre-deal larceny, the member from Northwest, the member from Northwest, the member from Northwest Manchester. I think you were absent when we brought before the House the Agricultural Produce Act, and I say that because in starting the debate, I did speak about some of what we're doing in a more comprehensive approach for pre-deal larceny. I do appreciate the point that pre-deal larceny continues to be one of the major hurdles facing people who are involved in agriculture and who are looking to get involved in agriculture. So we did speak to some of the things that we have done in relation to amending our anti-gang legislation so that pre-deal larceny can be charged now under the anti-gang legislation. I spoke to the units that we've set up. We've set up 7 units to treat specifically with pre-deal larceny. I also spoke to why we needed the Agricultural Produce Act, because that treats with the transportation of agricultural produce, and the fines were much too low, and the scheme was not properly put together. So I will look, member, maybe there does need to be a more comprehensive statement, so we have it on the record of the House in relation to some of the things that we have been doing. I'll take them in reverse order. So St. Andrew West. Yep, so, you know, the realities of climate change are here with us. And as we build resilience, we still are recognizing that some of the events that we're having is almost very difficult to plan for. When you have 18% of your average yearly rainfall in the space of 24 hours, which was what happened in Tropical Cyclone 22, you see the tremendous difficulty. With that said, we are encouraging and providing the technical support for our farmers to not just be outdoor farmers, but to invest in some protected agriculture, right? We have a program now where if you already have some protected agriculture and it has fallen into disrepair, farmers can reach out to RADA. We can help you repair those items. And next financial year, I do expect to get some support to help some of our smaller farmers, to help them set up these shade houses, greenhouses. So you can look forward to that in the next budget presentation. The member from St. Andrew South West. Yes, so we do have a program to support poultry farmers. So I would say to you to tell your farmers to contact the RADA office for St. Andrew. We have provided, the overall project is $50 million. The majority of that is put to urban areas because we do appreciate that a number of our urban farmers are in the poultry sector. So contact RADA if you have challenges, please. Let me know. So, yes. So remember, one of the, and it probably feeds into your next question, one of the transparency and accountability mechanisms is that our farmers have to be registered. There's nothing stopping, if you're an urban poultry farmer, you can get registered. And I say to the members of the House who have urban constituencies, we are willing to have the RADA team come to you, set up a day and do a registration where they can go and look at what the cubs that they have set up so that we can have that. So we have no difficulty. I don't want to miss, I didn't make a note. So the member from St. Catherine, North Central. So the 64 million which was spoken of will be directly aligned to the areas that were impacted by Tropical Cyclone 22, right? So again, we've already identified some areas were more impacted than others, right? So there are some areas, especially in St. Thomas and in East Rural St. Andrew, and in parts of St. Catherine, right, that have been tremendously impacted. So that is how it will be done in terms of the assessment and doing the work. You know, it may be best, the member from St. Andrew, what's your constituency? Southeast. It may be best that you, especially in relation to the importation of chicken parts regime, that well, let me say one thing. We have put in place a new regime. We have put in place a tiered system, right, where people qualify in relation to a number of different assessments that are done by a technical team, right? And that is operating now. It is still fairly new. We are going through teething pains, but that is happening now. Since the flood, there has been no specific additional item. In other words, and I'll speak in terms of the gap assessment, we have been looking at the gaps that are out there, right? It's always a delicate balance. This Minister of Agriculture is not interested in imports. We want to drive local production. With that said, clearly, we do appreciate the realities out there facing the consumers, right? So we do have some specific things that are regularly a part of the importation regime. That would be things like onion, things like potatoes, right? But there has been no new item brought yet. But the team is out there doing the assessment. So going to some of the things that were said by the shadow spokesperson. So we are doing an assessment, and we do regular assessments in relation to gaps. But I want to start where he started, because there are a number of fallacies that the shadow spokespersons kind of embarks upon. And I don't know if it's because we are now in the political, I'm going to say it. I do not know if now that we are in the political silly season, why a very rational, up to now, shadow spokesperson is making comments that he knows, he absolutely knows the rationale, the reasoning. Nonetheless, he fails to raise it, but raises issues. And I'll deal with them one by one. So one, when we speak about reduction in yields, that he would have looked at the PIOJ data and he would have seen a reduction in yields and a reduction in area under production. Madam Speaker, the opposition spokesperson also knows that this country experienced the worst drought ever in the history of the country, starting from October 2022. Now, if you are going through drought, Madam Speaker, let me put it a different way. I don't know.
Members, please allow the minister to speak. Let me educate you. The members, the statements being made, though distracting, are not heard by the media or answered. It is as if they have fallen in the forest dead. Do not disturb the minister.
So, Madam Speaker, again, so the member raised lower yields and lower areas. We went into drought October 2022. Once you're in drought, Madam Speaker, because the foundation of our agricultural sector is still based on rainfall, and I'll get to that. Once you're in drought, even if you plant the same amount, you're going to get lower yields. Now, if you're in drought from October, Madam Speaker, and you come into a planting cycle in January, in February, clearly you're not going to plant the same amount. Our farmers are smart, so they're not going to outlay the same amount, because we are in, let me say it again, not a regular drought, not the drought of 2 years ago, not the drought of 10 years ago. Since we have been recording drought in our country, we are on the lowest level. And you know what we should be saying, Madam Speaker? But he may have missed this. We really should be commending our farmers. Because, Madam Speaker, let me explain to you why. Let me explain to you why. Madam Speaker, in 2021, this country hit the highest production levels ever recorded in our history. For the first time, we passed over 700,000 tons of local production. That's 2021. In 2022, we beat that and passed over 800,000 tons. So, Madam Speaker, I want you to follow me now. We have had the worst drought in our history, and we are just down 10%. So we are not even back to the levels prior to COVID. Oh, I understand. So we are still higher. So, you see, Madam Speaker, a flawed analysis will lead to the wrong conclusion. Right? And when we looked at the numbers, Madam Speaker, the reduction in acreage pales in comparison to the yield. The real challenge that we've been seeing is the yield. Farmers are going out, but they're not getting the yield large because of the access to water. And you know what, Madam Speaker? We are facing this problem now because for decades, governments did not put significant resources, investment, money. Yes, and let me tell you, I hear the members say, really? You know, let me tell you, Madam Speaker, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. There is a community. I want you to listen to me. There is a community. There is a community in Clarendon.
Minister, I'm going to break you again. The Assistant Clerk was pointing out a while ago that time for answering questions has also expired. So I am making sure to spend a little time ensuring that everybody have an appreciation for the standing orders and why questions are to be asked in a particular way. Now, 3 questions would normally be what is allowed at question time, and it is the Speaker's discretion to allow more than 3. When that is done, what happens is equally the Minister required to answer the questions will end up speaking far longer than 5 minutes because of the volume of questions that were asked. So since no one is listening, I have no challenge. I'm sure persons will hear the next time we limit the questions to 3 questions and ask persons to submit the remainder in writing. Minister, I'll allow you to complete. I'm asking members, I would love to hear the Minister's response. Please allow him to speak without the noise on both sides of the House. It is very important to hear.
So, Madam Speaker, as I was saying...
Member,
so,
I am learning to name. So, member, I do not want to name you because it's easier to remember your name than your constituency. And if I make the mistake and call your name, I know what the Marshal will think it means. Please respectfully allow the Minister to respond to your questions.
Madam Speaker, I was making the point that fundamentally governments for the past 3 decades have not put significant investment into building out our irrigation network so that our farmers have access to water even in the time of drought. Madam Speaker, there's a community that for years they tell me that political representatives came and promised that they would bring agricultural water. And you know, Madam, that community is in Clarendon, Southwestern, a place by the name of Parnassus. And it is this government that is spending billions of dollars, Madam Speaker. Billions with a B, Madam Speaker. Billions with a B.
Speaker. Madam Speaker, on a point of order.
Please, let us hear your point of order.
Is misleading the House. Panarsos is an area that was known for banana cultivation for years and had extensive irrigation. There were wells there that you are now rehabilitating. So you are misleading the House. There are 3 wells that you are rehabilitating. So you are misleading the House and you need to withdraw that comment.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, if there...
Minister, please take your seat. Member from Clarendon Southwestern. Member from Clarendon Southwestern. You have been allowed to speak. You have been allowed to ask your questions. You have been allowed to stand up and on a point of order make your statement. I am now asking you to sit quietly and listen to the minister.
Your ruling on my point of order. Madam Speaker, what is the ruling on my point of order? Because I have presented, the House is being misled.
Member,
the House is
member,
being
please
misled,
take your seat.
and I've just indicated certain things that the minister cannot.
Member, please take your seat.
So I want a
please
ruling, Madam
take your
Speaker.
seat. Now, member, you cannot insist on a ruling, particularly for a speaker who has no clue as to whether or not your statement is correct. As to whether or not your statement is correct. I do not know if you even have one well in the particular place he spoke of. So, I am now speaking. Member, I am speaking. No, member, I am speaking. I am speaking. I am speaking, member. Member, if you have asked a particular question as you did in respect of your point of order, it would require that the minister respond to you. It could never be the speaker who is asked to respond to such a statement. I do not know the place of which you speak, nor do I know if you have even one well in the place you speak of. So the minister would be required to respond to your statement. And that is absolutely so. Member from Southwestern. That is you, Member Burke. Yes. I wonder why, Member. I am asking you, Member, to equally believe you me. Marshall. Member, I promise you, you would not want the data to happen. It must be. Now, members on both sides of the House, I am asking you to allow the minister to make his presentation. It is approximately 4:30, and all of us are expected to be here at 6 o'clock for a 2-hour town hall meeting as it relates to the code of conduct, the behavior of parliamentarians, and the responsibility of members of parliament. So I am asking you to please allow the House to proceed efficiently so that we can move into the next item on the agenda. Thank you.
Madam
Allow
Speaker,
Minister.
thank you. At no point did I mislead the House, Madam Speaker. I was very clear in saying that for years people have been asking for irrigation. As the member said, he indicated that the wells were no longer useful. He said that. So you can't let me use his exact words. Let me use the exact words. Madam Speaker, we have gone into Parnassus, right? And we have not only rehabilitated old wells that had existed but were not being utilized. Madam Speaker, I never said there were no wells. When you go into an area, I will say it again. I will say it again. Madam Speaker, for years, farmers in that community has been asking for an irrigation system. If you want me to go further, you can say there was a time when they had a system, but that system, unfortunately, under their government, was allowed to fall into disrepute. Facts. What, Madam Speaker, what you must ask him to do is say a point of order on that. Madam Speaker, we have not only rehabilitated, we have dug new wells in Parnassus. And Madam Speaker, we don't have to go if our but, because unless him going to stand up and not come to the launch, like how him never come to the launch of the road. But I hope that for the farmers, he will come to the launch where we will outline. But Madam Speaker, I never thought the member would, I honestly, Madam Speaker, never thought the member would take offense. Because what I say for Parnassus, I can say for Amity Hall, I can say for Comapen, right? I can say for parts of South Manchester. We are spending, Madam Speaker, $10 billion to put 1,500 hectares of land. And Madam Speaker, we're not just digging wells. We're not just laying pipes. We're building administrative buildings. We're building storage buildings. We're building processing facilities. You know, one of the things that his farmers, the farmers in his area, will benefit from, we're going to have a matching grant program. They come with some money to start their enterprise, and the government will match it under our new program. So, Madam Speaker, the beauty is that this is not about personality. This is about the farmers. And I've said it, and I'll say it here. Madam Speaker, for me, farmers have no color. I don't care who they support. I don't care who they vote for. We are going to do the work to serve every single farmer. Two more areas. Two more areas. Two more areas. Two more areas, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I understand. Two more areas. Madam Speaker, the people, the member suggested, and I'm not saying he's saying instead of. I'm not sure, I don't think he said that. But what he's suggesting is that what we do in terms of an incentive to farmers in the light of a recent rain event, a tropical cyclone that has wiped out a number of our farmers. The member is suggesting that we say to farmers that they should file against the profits that they would get. That is what the member is saying, that the real response of the government should be to go to the small farmers and to highlight to them that under this act, if they can get income tax relief by filing against their profits if they are a recognized farmer. Madam, approve farmer. Madam Speaker, I would suggest to the House that what the farmers really need is direct intervention at this point, right? And any other theoretical legal construct can't move the farmers back to productivity. So he can take that and go to tell the farmers, we are providing 157 million to get our farmers back out and planting now. The last area was not in my speech, but because it's a time of propaganda and politics, the member decided to embark on something that's very harmful and hurtful to the hardworking fishers all across the length and breadth of Jamaica. I'll make 2 points. We have had a
Yeah, Madam Speaker, the member is imputing motive, and I think that that is not allowed by the standing orders and totally out of order for him.
Madam Speaker, I will withdraw any motive if they believe that when I said it must be politics, or I'll withdraw that motive. What I will say is that the member is spreading propaganda. That is a fact. I don't know his motive, but propaganda is propaganda. A couple things. Madam Speaker, what we have operated in Jamaica in our lobster sector are registered and licensed Jamaican companies, right? That is a fact, right? The member knows this, Madam Speaker, but again, the member has embarked on a series of propaganda. What we are seeing, Madam Speaker, in our fisheries sector now, having gone and spoken to the fishers, and I spoke to my fishers in Great Bay, I spoke to my fishers in Billy's Bay, I spoke to my fishers in Calabash Bay. There are a couple of things have come together, Madam Speaker, and we must never use these things to try and propagandize issues. One, Madam Speaker, our lobster fishers will tell you that they are seeing some of the biggest hauls, catches in a long time. You see, what has happened, Madam Speaker, due to effective management of our fisheries sector and due to the fact that this government provided the resources for the Coast Guard to provide a greater presence on our banks. We are now able, Madam Speaker, to bring in more. There was another issue that we had. Madam Speaker, the majority of the bigger companies who trade in lobster export their lobster. Their lobster does not trade on the local market. They export the lobster. There was a delay, Madam Speaker, with the exportation of lobster for this season in relation to new requirements that have come out of the EU, and that has caused some challenges in the market space. With that said, Madam Speaker, let us be categorically clear. There is absolutely no importation of lobster into this country. Additionally, because we don't talk, Madam Speaker, we act. We already, Madam Speaker, we already dispatched the National Fisheries Authority to go into our fishing communities to see if there is truly a challenge facing our fishers. And where they found that there was a challenge, to deal with it effectively. I can tell you, our head of the National Fisheries Authority went into Great Bay, met with the fishers, and I can tell you, our fishers are continuing and expect to have their best Christmas ever. So Madam Speaker, back to where we started. Our farmers and our fishers know if there are any challenges that they face, we won't hide from it. We will treat with it frontally. We will have the teams dispatched to meet with them. The minister makes himself available because there is no sector more important than agriculture and fisheries. And this government and this minister will do all in our power, along with State Minister Witter, to ensure that if they face flood, if they face drought, we don't laugh about it. We don't try and make it into anything for the trail. We act upon it. We will be there for them in the good times and in the bad times. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Next statement by Minister. Minister of Labour and Social Security, the Member of Parliament for Clarendon South Eastern, will now make his statement.
Madam Speaker, the copies have been distributed. Well, they have been handed out at 2 o'clock.
I do believe they were circulating because I saw them walking around with it,
But
and I got mine quite a while ago.
We have more, Madam Speaker. No pictures on them. Yes. Madam Speaker, I rise to present the third and final parliamentary statement for today, a statement that perhaps will bring some tranquility. Yes, tranquility. No. But it's a statement. Next week we'll talk about the goodies. This week we're talking about an important sector, persons with disabilities. Madam Speaker, last Sunday, December 3rd, the world celebrated International Day of Persons Living with Disabilities. This week, from December 3rd to 8th, we here in Jamaica recognize Disabilities Awareness Week, which began with our church service on Sunday. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, myself, Minister of State, Dr. Dunn, and our team, we launched one of the most critical tools in this sector, the accessibility checklist, a very important element in our efforts to advance inclusivity for persons with disabilities. Madam Speaker, this launch comes on the heels of the implementation of the Disabilities Act in 2022, a significant element in the framework to advance the rights of persons living with disabilities. What is true is that for us, the story of advancing their rights is a story of collective action and hope. And this accessibility checklist, Madam Speaker, an invaluable tool, will be used by all Jamaicans as a guide to increase awareness of architectural, structural, and communication barriers which prevent full access to buildings and facilities by persons living with disabilities. It further provides, Madam Speaker, instructions on the implementation of additional elements that will facilitate the inclusion and functioning of our persons with disabilities in spaces and areas where they have previously been challenged. This is, in our history, the first time that we have such a comprehensive toolkit developed to guide both the private and public sectors on how we can build a stronger, more inclusive Jamaica. Madam Speaker, we speak of our early stimulation program, and there are several accounts of young children with disabilities who, with the aid of our early stimulation program, are now today performing beyond their initial diagnosis and expectations. It is this government, Madam Speaker, through my ministry, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, that currently provides early intervention services to some 3,124 children with developmental disabilities between birth to 6 years. As a nation, let us thank the hard-working team at the Early Stimulation Program, parents, family members, all who are collaborating. And let me at this time just thank my team at the ministry, myself and Dr. Dunn. We have our permanent secretary here, Mrs. Collett Roberts-Risden, with our CTD, Mrs. Dare Williams, and the director, Suzette Morris. And I know, Madam Speaker, we also had Elsa Elizabeth Mark Willis here, a full team from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security who have been here from 2 o'clock waiting. We can give them a clap. They're well deserved. And they're here to show support for this Disabilities Awareness Week, which I know on both sides we will have a resonation of applaud. We provide our children in the early stimulation program, Madam Speaker, with speech therapy, physiotherapy, advanced developmental screening and evaluation, counseling, community and centered based intervention and behavior therapy. And this is all free at no cost to them. Madam Speaker, to further our services within rural Jamaica, some 165 interventions were conducted through our mobile units. Importantly, it is this government that in September 2023 opened its doors to 223 new students with developmental disabilities in Kingston and Portland. Additionally, Madam Speaker, we have assisted approximately 60 children with mild to severe disabling conditions to transition into special and regular primary education. In the true spirit of this Disabilities Awareness Week, the government is now training more than 800 parents in intervention techniques to better care and manage their children with disabilities. This week is an important week. It is a week for us to utilize as an opportunity, Madam Speaker, all of us in this House, to bring awareness, education, and support to the community of persons with disabilities, their caregivers, their family members, and their friends, and the wider Jamaican society, and for us to celebrate the progress made while recognizing the work that remains to be done. Madam Speaker, persons with disabilities are often defined by their physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment. Nevertheless, many have risen above expectations to excellence, and it is our duty to facilitate their growth and inclusion in all areas of our society and to provide them with opportunities to overcome challenges. Madam Speaker, we use this opportunity to encourage Jamaicans across the country to integrate our hard-working, competent, and capable Jamaicans with disabilities into our workforce. You will find that they will provide integral contributions wherever an opportunity is presented to them. So let us change our mindset and recognize that all of us are entitled to and deserving of the same opportunities. And this is not just talk, Madam Speaker. We at the Ministry of Labour and Social Security are leading out, and we have done just that. We have widely integrated persons with disabilities into our departments and agencies. Madam Speaker, on February 14th, 2022, Jamaica attained a historic milestone marking the coming into effect of the Landmark Disabilities Act 2014, giving full powers to its provisions to safeguard and enhance the welfare of persons with disabilities across our nation. This day is significant to us as a people. It is recognized, Madam Speaker, as the date on which we took tangible steps to firmly establish Jamaica as a rights-based society for all persons, and to operationalize the first goal of the Vision 2030 Jamaica Development Plan. Jamaicans are empowered to achieve their full potential. Madam Speaker, the Disability Subsector Plan of Vision 2030 promotes the creation of a Jamaican society that is inclusive, accessible, provides opportunities for all, and recognizes the rights, freedoms, and responsibilities of persons with disabilities in the process of nation building. Madam Speaker, we have work to do, but we are on the right path. It is estimated that 1 in 10 Jamaicans is a person living with a disability. Madam Speaker, significant progress has been made in advancing the policies and programs to provide for improvements in access to quality education for children with disabilities. Of course, this includes the establishment of special education units within mainstream schools and the provision of support services and accommodations. The government, Madam Speaker, despite these achievements, Madam Speaker, there is much room for improvement if we are to ensure that all spaces are accessible. So we make a call to Jamaica for us to improve accessibility in our offices, in our churches, in our schools, in our homes, in our communities, in our business. Madam Speaker, this accessibility checklist serves as a guide to achieve these goals. It is an invaluable tool adopted from the United States of America America's Access Board, and as a result of the collaborative partnership between our Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities and the Bureau of Standards here in Jamaica. The checklist was meticulously crafted to serve as a user-friendly, very easy to read reference for pinpointing architectural and structural obstacles in areas frequented by individuals with disabilities, and it provides a valuable instrument for identifying and addressing these barriers, and can be easily accessed on the internet as well. Colleagues, we pause here to just emphasize that the accessibility checklist is not intended in any way to replace compliance with the national building codes. Instead, it serves as a companion tool designed to heighten awareness among those entrusted with the planning and development of our buildings and facilities, including our engineers, architects, contractors, developers, to ensure that the needs of individuals with disabilities across the country is taken into full account in the design of our buildings. Our public buildings must now include essential features such as ramps, rails, elevators, and other necessary accommodations to facilitate full access to all. I want to assure this Honourable House of our commitment at the Ministry to the unwavering pursuit of legislative and policy priorities concerning the community of persons with disabilities, and in particular our commitment to accessibility, which we have made a strategic priority for current and upcoming financial years. As we look to the future, Madam Speaker, our vision for an inclusive Jamaica encompasses more than just accessibility. We will continue to take active steps towards the improvement and expansion of social and economic services to persons with disabilities to facilitate their increased independence and participation in society, increasing equity for all. We will continue to tirelessly pursue the establishment of standards to reduce discrimination in access to education and training, employment, transportation, and health care for persons with disabilities.
House Leader, the Minister's time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, the member's time having expired, I beg to move that he be given 5 minutes in the usual way to complete his presentation. May it suit and please you, Madam Speaker.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security remains committed to promoting awareness and understanding within communities, schools, and workplaces. And we're going to continue to foster the necessary relationships here and abroad to create the partnerships that will help us to prohibit discrimination, to protect and promote equal rights for this very important community. We can't achieve this alone. Madam Speaker, I call on all individuals, businesses, and other government agencies to join hands with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security and our Council for Persons Living with Disabilities in support of this mission, particularly as this is our Disability Awareness Week. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, if we are, which we all want, to build a Jamaica where there is prosperity for all, then accessibility cannot be optional. It must form the core of every policy, program, project outline, and building code on the island. So, Madam Speaker, the government is committed and will continue to be committed to ensuring that accessibility is interwoven into all corners of our communities, workplaces, and social environment. Because, Madam Speaker, accessibility is not a choice, it is a must. Thank you.
The member from St. Andrew Southwestern will respond.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank the Minister for his presentation against the background of Sunday being celebrated as International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Under the global theme, United in Action to Rescue and Achieve the SDGs for, with, and by persons with disabilities, and also against the background of Disabilities Awareness Week. I have, just to make it clear, as is the custom, that I have just received the presentation and I have tried to listen and read at the same time so that I could respond appropriately. And I note some of the actions and activities and programs that are described herein. And let me say off the bat that it is always important for us to continue to make progress. In this area, it's one of the areas that, you know, when we come to talk about governments and what they have been doing over the years, sometimes we pretend that those who have gone before us have done nothing. And this is not one of those areas where we could claim that. Certainly, Jamaica was probably one of the first, if not the first, to accede to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And it meant something. And it wasn't just talk. We have been doing things. We hear the Disabilities Act of 2014, where we spent a long time doing that. Yes, it came into actual force in 2022. And 7 years after, for us to get to implementing it and to also then move to the regulations and even for the tribunal. I was very pleased when we established the tribunal, and I'm expecting that through the tribunal we will have a vigorous program of protecting the rights that have been accorded to persons with disabilities, and that persons will not be fearful or hesitant in making sure that they demand the protection that we have said that they are deserving. Notwithstanding all of what is happening, Minister, I know that you will agree with me that persons with disabilities is probably counted amongst the most vulnerable in our society. And they are because possibly 70%, maybe 80% of the community, when you compare them to able-bodied persons, whether it is in education, whether it is access to health care, and whether it is employment, they really fall way behind. And I agree with you that this is the challenge. As with so many of the other vulnerable groups that we have, the challenge is to make sure that we deal with the issue of stigma and discrimination, and that we improve those indices that we are talking about. Minister, I noted you saying that the minister currently provides early intervention services to some 3,124 children. Whenever I hear these numbers, the first thing that comes to my mind is that's good. Now, can we know that's 3,124 out of how many? What is the population that really requires the service in contrast to what we are actually serving? The other thing that I'm well aware of, because I remember one year Genesis had a very, very good program where for the summer they offered free of charge summer programs for children with disabilities. As I sought to help, to assist, and to encourage persons to take their children so that they could be included, so that they could have that, there were some other issues that really I realized were barriers, which is really just if they're on transportation, getting them to that site so that they can access free services. That's a challenge. Yeah, the caregiver, yes, absolutely. We remembered in COVID the issues with the shadows, for example. And so these are some of the other barriers that we have to be mindful of. And then when it comes to the burden of care, yes, for parents and family members, sometimes it is almost debilitating, and it becomes a whole family effort, and in many cases, a whole community effort. And so the one thing I really, really want to stress in terms of what you said is that what we are embarking here is a whole of country approach that needs to be taken. The government doing their part, yes, private sector doing their part, the family members doing their part, but every single one of us have a role to play, because getting rid of stigma and discrimination is not something that is reversed easily, and it is not something that is done in a very short period. So we have to encourage that engagement and that united effort to make sure that we can get there. You know, the notion of this week, as well as the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, is really, behind it is a notion that disability is not inability. And how do we get to really send that message and to make sure that persons are on board, that every one of us as Jamaicans, we have different abilities that we bring to the table, and they still have a role to play. So if I am to echo some of the terms that I heard persons using earlier, time come for an inclusive society, the building of an inclusive society. And this need not be one of those issues on which we are divided by colors or partisanship, because there are too many individuals and families depending on us jointly to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions for you on it. I noticed that it is said here that the progress that has been made includes the establishment of special education units within mainstream schools and provision of support services and accommodations, similar to the question that was asked by the spokesperson on the overall population of children who need those services to do with speech therapy, physiotherapy, advanced developmental screening, evaluation, etc. Similarly, I'm wondering what percentage of schools would you say currently have these special education units in them, and what is the plan in terms of rolling them out more broadly across Jamaica? That's one question I have. I know that you say that the government has taken steps to prohibit discrimination in employment on the basis of disability and the promotion of inclusive hiring practices among employers. I'd ask if you could be a bit more specific on that. What specific steps has the government taken to prohibit discrimination in employment on the basis of disability, because I'm not aware of them, and I'm interested in that. And I noticed you've said that the public buildings of the country must now include essential features such as ramps, rails, elevators for accessibility for persons with physical disabilities in particular, but not just physical disabilities. And I agree. And I'm wondering, what do you anticipate is likely to be the budget for making public buildings accessible, and over what period of time do you think it will take us before we have achieved, I would say, substantially full accessibility in our public buildings for persons with disabilities in terms of ramps, rails in bathrooms and so on. Sometimes bathrooms have to be reconfigured to make them a little bit more spacious so a person can turn in a wheelchair and that kind of thing. And the last point I wanted to, last question I want to ask you relates to a housing scheme called Cheshire Village, which is in eastern St. Andrew, near to Ellison Flats, which my father was instrumental in the construction of Cheshire Village, and it is an integrated community where persons with disabilities live, but able-bodied persons can also live, but every house is supposed to have at least one disabled person in it. I think there are 21 units in there. Now, that was built, I think, in the 70s, and I'm in touch with the homeowners association there, and I know that they're having some real problems with some of the buildings over time have deteriorated somewhat, the homes, and they have roofing issues and so on, and these are vulnerable persons. They pay rent, but a very modest rental for the renting of their homes, but they really aren't able to manage the repair to the roof. So I was just commending to you that if you could have a look into that, sir, and see if something could be done to assist those that have this problem with the roofing in particular, because with the rains and so on, some of them are leaking quite badly. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, members, for those input.
Minister.
Oh.
Minister, you may turn your mic on again. Oh, you know what? Yeah. Go ahead, member from
Thank you,
St. Andrew Western.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, we have the Disabilities Awareness Week, and that comes on an annual basis. But are you satisfied that the level of education in the society as a whole is sufficient to really keep this issue frontally before us, so that we can begin to address the problem in meaningful ways? Because to do it annually and make a week of it is good and must be encouraged, but I believe we need to do more if we in fact are going to make the kind of progress that we need to make.
Minister?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to thank our colleagues for those important questions and also some of the recommendations. Just to start with the last comment, the JCPD, which is the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, as well as some of our partners like the Abilities Foundation, focus on that continuous awareness. And of course, we utilize all platforms as we are today to continue to raise awareness. That is the essence of the Disabilities Awareness Week. For us at the ministry, we don't have a week. This is every day, all day. However, the Disabilities Awareness Week allows for us to celebrate and to involve and integrate the rest of the country in this continuous conversation. But it's something which, again, thank you for the question. Even the questions help in raising awareness. And we are, as I did in my presentation, calling on members of Parliament in your own office to integrate somebody in your internships, in your mentorship, in your volunteerism, and to ensure that you seek out the associations and the groups and the community groups in your constituencies to highlight these issues. Moving on to the questions, if I could start with the question regarding the schools, member. We have, as I'm advised, 10 specially designed special education schools, primary and secondary. We have 17 partnerships with private entities in which we provide up to $300,000 per student in those partnerships, and we have 21 regular schools. Yes, per year. And 21 regular schools, mainstream schools, that have those special education units that I spoke about. You spoke about the various steps being taken in terms of employment, education. In addition to the Disabilities Act, all year round we are out advancing and promoting throughout the JCPD, and we actually have a code which is being developed now, which we'll bring to the Parliament in short order, which will assist us in terms of the practices for education and training, and it will be reviewed by the House, so you get a chance to make your contribution. In terms of Cheshire Village, I welcome this suggestion, and I will look forward to perhaps collaborating with you, since it is something, there's a lineage in ensuring that we can identify the ways to give support. But let me hasten to say, one of the things that you mentioned is an opportunity for us to just reiterate, the accessibility checklist is not intended to be the building code. There's no intention for it to replace the building code. It is simply to complement and to make sure that we provide a very easy, simple document for all Jamaicans who are applying the building codes to know how to never leave out the various functionalities for persons with disabilities. And the goal is to eliminate the barriers that now exist in how persons are implementing the current codes. As it relates to the registry member, in relation to the, well, you asked about the persons with disabilities, and I think it's a fitting opportunity for us to also again reaffirm the need for all Jamaicans who are either persons with disabilities or living with persons with disabilities to encourage them to register, right? Because when you speak about the specific numbers, the 3,124 of what number, this is why we utilize in this week every opportunity, every platform to call on persons to register so that we can have the most accurate number. We will next year have a particularly aggressive drive in going across the country in seeing that we can encourage as many persons as possible to register. When we do have that, and that accurate data will guide us more in terms of the percentages. I'm trying to look on the questions that you raised. Well, let me just, I think you raised also, member, a matter of the accessibility in all the various sectors. Can I say that we have gone a far way, but in this week, we use the opportunity to, particularly for members of Parliament, to encourage the use of your CDF and the use of whatever allocations to assist the schools, the various churches, the community spaces, in ensuring that the requisite infrastructural designs are there. But it is not just about physical infrastructure. It is also about the access to the technology and the online systems to allow for us to eliminate the communication barriers. And so this is our opportunity to work across aisles. And I want to welcome and extend the invitation to you as shadow spokesperson in this area for us to jointly perhaps have some discussions on how we can encourage our persons with disabilities and those in their communities to have them as fully integrated as possible. Again, members, I want to thank you for your question and thank you for what I consider in those questions, support for what we are doing, and good recommendations in terms of how we can advance the disability sector, particularly in this, our Disabilities Awareness Week. Thank you.
Minister, thank you. Sadly, we do not have as many of our ministers here as I would have loved. However, our long-standing practice of allowing statements by ministers to go on for an extraordinary long time, and then the practice of answering questions in a way that is also very long, is one that we are going to have to discontinue. Statements by ministers are meant to be efficient, and the responses should be succinct. Minister, just sitting, not specifically as it relates to you, it's just that you're here now, but observation for ministers generally, and one that we are going to have to enforce, being very efficient with time in respect of statement and responses. Thank you very much, Minister. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following. Annual report of the Management Institute for National Development, MIND, for the financial year 2022-2023 and its related ministry paper numbered 104 of 2023. Ministry papers number 105, 106, and 107 respectively of 2023 containing Cabinet agenda issues dated 28 August 2023, 11 September 2023, and 25th September 2023 respectively. The Bauxite and Alumina Industries, Special Provisions Associated Producer, Discovery Bauxite Operations Limited Number 2 Order 2023 and its resolution under the Bauxite and Alumina Industries Special Provisions Act. The report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the bills shortly entitled the Criminal Justice Administration Amendment Act 2023, the Offences Against the Person Amendment Act 2023, and the Child Care and Protection Amendment Act 2023. Also laid on the table today are copies of the Auditor General's Department Certified Appropriations Account for head 16,049 from the Management Institute of National Development for the year 2020-2021, 2021-2022, and 2022-2023.
Thank you. Bills brought from the Senate.
The following is a message from the President of the Senate. To the Honorable House of Representatives, I have the honor to advise the Honorable House of Representatives that on the first day of December 2023, the following bills entitled 1. An Act to provide for the integration of the National Family Planning Board into the Ministry with responsibility for health, to make provision for the transfer of the functions, assets, rights, and liabilities of the National Family Planning Board, to repeal the National Family Planning Act, and to provide for connected matters, and 2. An Act to provide for the integration of the National Council on Drug Abuse into the Ministry with responsibility for health, to make provision for the transfer of the functions, assets, rights, and liabilities of the National Council on Drug Abuse, to repeal the National Council on Drug Abuse Act, and to provide for connected matters were passed in the Senate without amendment. Signed by Thomas Tavares Finson, OJ, CD, KC, JP. Thank you, Madam.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the bills shortly entitled the Criminal Justice Administration Amendment Act 2023, the Offences Against the Person Act 2023, and the Child Care and Protection Amendment Act 2023.
Notices of motions given orally.
Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move, be it resolved that the report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the bills shortly entitled Criminal Justice Administration Amendment Act 2023, the Offences Against the Person Act Amendment 2023, and the Child Care and Protection Amendment Act 2023, which were laid on the table of the House on the 5th day of December 2023, be adopted.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the following motion. The Bauxite and Alumina Industry Special Provision Act. Bauxite and Alumina Industry Special Provision Act. Associated Producer Discovery Bauxite Operations Limited Number 2, Order 2023. Whereas by virtue of Section 4 of the Bauxite and Alumina Industries Special Provision Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, the Minister may by order declare to be an associated producer any bauxite producer with whom the government has an agreement in force under which the government is associated either directly or indirectly with that bauxite producer in production of bauxite and alumina in Jamaica or in related enterprises, or any person who is engaged in the winning of bauxite in Jamaica or in the producing in Jamaica of alumina from bauxite, one in Jamaica, and is in the opinion of the minister in special relationship with the government, or is engaged in the winning in Jamaica of bauxite or in the producing in Jamaica of alumina from bauxite, one in Jamaica, or is engaged in other related enterprises or in all those activities and enterprises, and in any case be entered into a special agreement with the government for the purpose of facilitating the carrying on of those activities or enterprises or of rationalizing the bauxite industry. And whereas the Discovery Bauxite Operations Limited is engaged in the winning of in Jamaica of bauxite and is in the opinion of the minister in special relationship with the government. And whereas on the 4th day of December 2023, the minister made the Bauxite and Alumina Industry Special Provision Associated Producers Discovery Bauxite Operation Number 2, Order 2023, having been satisfied that the requirement of Section 4 of the Act were met. And whereas by virtue of Section 4.4 of the Act, any other made under subsection 1 of the section shall be subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives. Now therefore, Madam Speaker, be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. The resolution may be cited as a Bauxite and Alumina Industry Special Provision Associated Producer Discovery Bauxite Operations Limited Number 2, Order 2023 Resolution. 2. The Bauxite and Alumina Industry Special Provision Act Associated Producer Discovery Bauxite Operations Limited Number 2, Order 23, which was laid on the table of the House on the 5th day of December 2023, is hereby affirmed.
Thank you. Questions and answers to questions? Not yet, member.
Madam Speaker, the time being 5:23 and of course beyond the 3:15 p.m. stipulation by standing orders, I now move that the House be allowed to receive questions after this time. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Member Jackson.
Madam Speaker, I hereby give notice of the expiration of 21 days. I'll ask the Minister of Local Government and Development these set of questions. And Madam Speaker, I will urge you, given your strict adherence to the provision of the standing order, that the 21 days be observed. And I say so, Madam Speaker, against the background that there are questions on the order paper for over 8 months now for answering.
Thank you, member from St. Catherine Southern. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sitting of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business. House Leader.
One item of public business today, and that is to accept the bill for amendment which was delivered earlier, being sent from the upper chamber under the signature of the President. Madam Speaker, it is my intention to ask the Minister of Gender, Entertainment and Culture to take responsibility for the measure in terms of the conclusion of the debate for the amendment thereto. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, thank you, House Leader. Madam Speaker, I want to use the opportunity Madam Speaker, to acknowledge in the gallery members from the music fraternity. Lydia Rose, who is General Manager for JCAP, Karine Miller from Jam Copy, and Mr. Evan Mullings from JAMS. And of course, we also have present the team from Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, Lily Claire Bellamy, Shamal English, and there's also the chairman of JCAP in the gallery and members of the board. So, Madam Speaker, I think it's important that they are here today and they were able to observe the proceedings here. And I'm sure they've learned a lot from what we have conducted here. And I also know that they'll leave here very pleased because of the amendment that we will now take. So, Madam Speaker, this is a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Copyright Act. But I want to quickly indicate the basis for legal authority of collective management organizations in Jamaica, and to just indicate the copyright framework. So what is copyright? It's rights granted to authors of original works. So the Copyright Act of Jamaica, 1993, 1999, 2015, 2023, sets out the basic principles governing copyright administration in Jamaica. These basic principles are common to the 180 member countries, including Jamaica, who are signatories to the Berne Convention of 1886, which is the principal international treaty on copyright. Jamaica is also signatory to several other agreements, such as the World Intellectual Property Office Copyright Treaty. These principles assure authors and owners of copyright works, namely original musical, literary, dramatic, or artistic works, certain exclusive rights over the use of their works for a minimum period of the author's lifetime, plus, in Jamaica's case, 95 years after death. These exclusive rights require that for any use of the work, permission or a license has to be sought from the copyright owners who are entitled to a royalty payment for any such use. And the uses covered by the Copyright Act are reproduction, that's copying. So when you copy a song or a record, distribution of public performance, for example, at concerts when the artist performs, or in restaurants or public places when you hear piped-in music, and broadcast, for example, what they play on radio stations, as well as for adaptation. So the creator of a work or copyright owner has the exclusive right to permit or prohibit use of his or her work and to receive financial compensation for any permitted use. We have to recognize that it's their job, although it's creative works, it's their income. However, it may be difficult for the copyright owner to monitor each and every use of the work, and for each and every user to directly contact the copyright owner to request permission to use the work. So collective management organizations, which are referred to as CMOs, or collecting societies, as they're also called, act on behalf of copyright owners to grant permission or a license to persons wishing to use the copyright works and to collect the fees or royalties payable for this use. So, collecting societies are copyright intermediaries. They act as agents in the copyright market by dealing with the licensing of music rights to commercial users and distribution of royalties to creators and rights owners. Licensing bodies, or CMOs, undertake on behalf of their creator members the administrative burden of managing their copyright by granting licenses and collecting royalties for subsequent distribution to the creator member. The sections of the Copyright Act establishing licensing bodies in Jamaica are section 89 to 99. And there are currently 3 bodies operating in Jamaica, each administering specific classes of rights. So there is the JCAP, which is the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, and it's a non-profit organization that collectively manages the public performance and mechanical reproduction rights of lyricists, that's songwriters, music composers, and music publishers. And JCAP is a member of CSAC, which is the International Confederation of Societies of Authors and Composers. And that's a worldwide, the leading worldwide network for composers and authors. Then there is JAMCOPY, Madam Speaker, which is the Jamaican Copyright Licensing Agency. And it's also a non-profit organization that manages the reproduction rights of creators of image and text-based works, such as writers, poets, journalists, visual artists, and publishers, and those who write columns in the newspapers. The third body, the Jamaica Music Society, JAMS, is a non-profit organization also that collectively administers performance rights on behalf of sound recording copyright owners such as labels. And JAMS is a member of the International Federation of Phonographic Industry. So, Madam Speaker, license means any license that is issued or offered by a licensing body authorizing in relation to works in which copyright subsists, the doing of any of the acts restricted by copyright. And the licensing body means a society or other organization which has as its main object or one of its main objects the negotiation or granting either as owner or prospective owner of copyright or as agent for him or her of licenses and whose objects include granting of licenses covering works of more than one author. So, Madam Speaker, the rights administered by these organizations here in Jamaica are not only for Jamaican creators and members of the Jamaican bodies, but also creator members of foreign licensing bodies whose works are used in Jamaica. And you know, some of the hotels and so on, they download music from the internet and all of that. Those are covered by the local bodies. The Jamaican CMOs maintain reciprocal agreements with their overseas equivalents, with each CMO collecting and then reciprocally transmitting the collected royalties to the respective CMOs. Unfortunately, in Jamaica, we play so much foreign music that I think we have been paying out more to foreign creators than we pay to local, because we just love to play the foreign music rather than the local music. Use of copyright material without the requisite licenses, and if not within the statutory exemptions provided under the Copyright Act, constitute an infringement of the owner's rights, and for which a copyright owner can institute legal action to stop infringing use and recover damages. So, for example, if you take somebody's music and you run it on a DV, on a CD, or you copy it and sell it, you're really doing something illegally. Somebody will hear something on the radio and say, I love that, you can't just give me a copy. That is really illegal, right? So these organizations are recognized by the government of Jamaica and the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, which falls under the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. And JIPO sits on the boards of JCAP and JAMCOPY as the Government of Jamaica representative. So, Madam Speaker, I wanted to just give a background to the copyright, the CMOs here in Jamaica, and to speak now to the importance of the amendments that we are now going to address. So the Copyright Act was amended in 2015. So there's a 2015 Act. And a new section 87A was included to require the registration of all licensing bodies. It was further stipulated that, and I quote, no person shall carry on the activity of negotiating or granting of licenses on behalf of owners of copyright unless that person is a licensing body holding a certificate of registration. Madam Speaker, when the 2015 Act was enacted, there were 3 existing unregistered licensing bodies referred to as collective management organizations operating in Jamaica, and namely, I'd named them earlier, JAMCOPY, JAMS, and JCAP. And these organizations have been operating for over 20 years. Section 87A therefore provided for the regularization of the activities of licensing bodies by requiring their registration with the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, JIPO. Further, Section 154 provides for a transitional period by way of an order by the minister, and this allows for a licensing body operating before the date of coming into operation of the Act to be required to satisfy the requirements for registration under Section 87A and any regulations in relation thereto within 6 months from that date or such longer period as the minister, after consultation with the executive director, may by order prescribe. While the regulations were being drafted, Madam Speaker, 3 extensions of the transitional period were granted by orders in 2018, 2019, and 2020, with the final extension having expired on May 2, 2021. Subsequently, the Attorney General's chambers advised that the orders granted dated June 17, 2019 and June 5, 2020 were ultra-virus to the Act, as the Act only provided for one extension, and as such, no further extensions could be granted after the order granted in 2018. Therefore, the said CMOs continued to perform without registration in contravention of the Act. Further, it was determined that it was more prudent to amend the transition period with retroactive effect to commence from July 30, 2015, since the order in 2018 was promulgated after the transition period had lapsed. This amendment is therefore intended, Madam Speaker, to remove any uncertainty in relation to the validity of the actions taken by the CMOs since 2015. In light of the above, the bill is being amended to 1, clarify the transitional provisions for the operation of unregistered organizations, while no regulations prescribing the form, manner, and fees required for an application for a certificate of registration are in force. And 2, provide protection from liability for persons who, from the 30th day of July 2015, acted pursuant to Section 154 of the Act. So, Clause 1, the short title, Construction and Commencement. This clause provides for the short title of the Act and directs that the Act should be read in conjunction with the Copyright Act and all amendments thereto. Further, the provision provides that the Act shall be deemed to have come into operation on July 30, 2015. Clause 2, Madam Speaker, repeal and replacement of Section 154 of the Principal Act. So the clause repeals Section 154 of the Act and replaces same with a new transitional provision to provide that, notwithstanding Section 87A and subject to subsection 2, an unregistered organization carrying on the activity of negotiating or granting licenses on behalf of owners of copyright immediately before the 30th day of July 2015 may continue to do so without holding a certificate of registration during the transitional period. This transitional period will end on a date to be specified by the Minister by notice published in the Gazette. Subsection 2 of the provision states that should the Executive Director refuse to grant a certificate of registration to an unregistered organization during the transitional period, the unregistered organization should immediately cease to negotiate and grant licensing on behalf of copyright owners. Madam Speaker, in this provision, unregistered organizations is defined to mean the Jamaica Copyright Licensing Agency, the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, and the Jamaica Music Society. So, Madam Speaker, Clause 3 provides protection from liability. And this provision provides that no proceedings shall be brought against any person for any act done pursuant to the repealed Section 154 during the period commencing on the 30th day of July 2015 and ending on the date of publication of this act in the Gazette. And of course, the memorandum stipulates that that's the key objective of the act. So, Madam Speaker, I don't know if other members would wish to contribute at this time before I ask for the bill to be read a second time.
Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, Minister, for your opening presentation on this bill coming from the Senate. It's been a long time since we've had a bill originating in the Senate, it seems. The Principal Act, the 2015 Act, I should say, was one in which I had a significant involvement, along with Minister Hilton, as he then was, in the development of it. And of course, some of the team who are here in the House and who you recognize when you commenced your opening were very involved in that process. I remember lengthy meetings of legislation committee to go through all of those provisions. And importantly, it did so many things, a significant one of which was, of course, to extend the duration of copyright for the Jamaican popular music catalog, which was coming to an end at the time. And, well, it depends how you look at this. There are some people who think it's good. Yeah, well, you may say so, but at the time it was highly desired by the owners of those masters, you know. Yeah, perhaps, but that was one of many things that were done at the time. And I don't know why it would be good for Jamaica, for our catalog of material, recorded material, to go into the public domain. You'd have to explain to me why that would be good for Jamaica, because it would mean that it could be copied and sampled without any payments being made to those who own the master recordings. And, you know, and some of our producers and the estates of our producers would lose a significant benefit if that were the case. So essentially, this bill is just a validation bill. What happened was that the time provided in the 2015 amendment for the unregistered organizations to become registered passed, and apparently not all of them had managed to get registered in that period, and then orders were made extending that period where there was no jurisdiction to make those orders, and that has now been recognized and is being fixed by this bill. So, you know, it's one of the many, although a somewhat different form of validation bill that comes here. Typically when they come here, it's to do with revenue that has been collected, or fees or something where there was no proper legal authority for it because of some oversight in the bureaucracy. And in this case, it's a little different. I mean, I'm interested for you to tell us, Minister, whether the very important entities that are listed here, the unregistered organizations, are now the holders of certificates of registration. I would hope that they now are, but it's not clear. The fact that the transitional period is being further extended, it's now 8 years since the amendments were made in 2015, and the transitional period will continue once this bill is enacted. The transitional period will continue until some date that the minister will publish in a notice in the Gazette. So that suggests that there's a need for it to continue longer, and therefore, if that's so, that would suggest that at least one or more of the unregistered organizations still remains unregistered. If that's not the case, I'd like you to explain why the transitional period will continue beyond the passing of this bill. So, Minister, yeah, I mean, we support the regularization of what went wrong in 2018, and we hope that it will facilitate the completion of the registration process of these important collection agencies, if that is incomplete. And of course, we recognize the importance of intellectual property, especially in the creative industries, music being perhaps the one in which Jamaica has excelled the most, to our economy, to our culture, and to our society as a whole. And, you know, having the right enabling framework is very important, legal framework, to facilitating the growth and development of the creative industries. And so to the extent that something went wrong previously, it is important to correct it. And that is what is now happening. So we will support the bill, though I'd appreciate if you could clarify the issue as to the transitional period, why it's required to extend it further beyond the passing of this bill. And if there are any of the unregistered organizations remain unregistered at this time, why that is, because it's now over 8 years since the 2015 amendments. And so I'm interested to hear why that would be at this point in time. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member Hilton, and then Minister, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member Hilton, I'm going to just please ask you to be brief.
Yes.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Leader of Opposition ended his brief intervention with a query about why, what are the outstanding issues, if there be any, requiring this amendment, this further amendment to the Copyright Act. I note the ministers in her presentation made the point that these CMOs act as well for foreign artists and copyright bodies. The question I'd want to know, if you could clarify, is whether this amendment would cover these bodies, certainly I'd imagine in Jamaica, but this would not, of course, because it doesn't have extraterritorial effect, would not prevent causes of actions or claims against these bodies in these foreign jurisdictions. I would like to know what sort of exposure they be in, if there be any conflicts or there be any issues arising during this period. But the question by the Leader of Opposition remains. We still want to know, notwithstanding the support, we still want to know what are the outstanding issues.
Thank you, Member. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, the question that was asked by the Leader of the Opposition in relation to why not now, when the amendment is passed here, why it should not come into effect. The regulations to provide for the registration are being finalized by the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. And so none of the CMOs are registered as the regulations need to be completed. So that's the reason. So it's just to allow time to tidy up, and then they will be, and it does not affect relations. It deals directly with works performed in Jamaica. So it would not, there's no exposure overseas. But I wanted to use the opportunity to, I know the intention, good intentions. Leader of the Opposition spoke to the extension to 95 years. I know that the member from East Western, St. Andrew, I actually led a delegation to, we actually objected to the 95 years unless a certain clause was put in the legislation, which was not done. So we support the shorter term rule, which enables songs to only enjoy the amount of protection that its home country gives that same work. So other countries protect their works for a particular time after the passing of the person, and we should do the same. We can't be protecting everybody's work for 95 years, and when they are protecting ours only for 75. And that was our objection, right? It would cover international issues as the CMOs would be able to carry on its works. So unless we're able to treat countries that are less than 95, we protect their works for the period that they would protect our works, then the 95 year is almost like we're in a small pond and we feel like a big fish. It's only Jamaica that protection would be provided. And that doesn't really help us. You understand what I'm saying? So the amendment needs to come to put us in a position where it's reciprocal. And the period of time that they would protect our works, that's the period of time we would protect theirs. So I think there's a misunderstanding of copyright issues. There is really, the country needs to be educated about it. And many, many individuals, including some attorneys, need to be educated. They should go and specialize in copyright law and understand it, because this country needs that kind of expertise. So, Madam Speaker, I now ask for the bill to be read a second time. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The question is that the bill be read a second time. Clarke? Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Copyright Act and the four connected matters read a second time.
Thank you. The House will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Minister, unless you have an objection, would it be okay to put clauses 1 through 3? Members, we put clause 1, 2, 3. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendments. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Thank you, Marshal. We are now back in the House. I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendments. Minister?
Madam Speaker, I now ask that the bill be read a third time.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Clarke?
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Copyright Act and four connected matters read a third time and passed.
Thank you, House. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business today. I now invite you to, on the motion of adjournment, to adjourn this Honorable House until Tuesday, December 12th at 2 p.m. at the George William Gordon House. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, House Leader. The question is that the House do now adjourn for the date set, December 12 at 2 p.m. sharp. That's December 2023, the 12th at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This Honorable House now stands adjourned.
persons with disabilities have abilities too.